Hogwarts, forbidden son of the Black and White Lord. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, The Assassination of Mr. Russell. But Voldemort, who was behind the rostrum, seemed a bit out of shape at the moment. His curled up body began to twitch continuously, as if his body would fall to the ground due to convulsions, and the next moment, everyone present held their breath again, looking at the twitching thing behind the rostrum. Some people feel lucky, thinking that the other party has finally received retribution, and the excessive use of black magic finally brought his shameful life to an end. This constant twitching is the omen of the other party's death. Some people feel fear, thinking that there seems to be something wrong with the other party's body. They know what the other party has done for that body, and now there are not many innocent people for the other party to digest. If there is really a problem with that body, then the present self will most likely become the nourishment for the other party to recover. Only Mr. Russell, who had been sitting on the third floor facing the rostrum, kept staring at the twitching body. The body, which was only half a person tall, was completely curled up together, and the large dress covered the opponent's body, like a piece of rag covering a stone. The constantly twitching body made Mr. Russell feel very familiar. He should have seen someone in this posture somewhere. After trying to think about the memory in his mind, Mr. Russell finally remembered that baby is a baby staying in the mother's womb. The other party's current curled up state is like a baby staying in the mother's womb, and the constant twitching of the body is just a herald of the imminent birth of a new life. After thinking about all this, Mr. Russell stood up suddenly and was about to walk to the rostrum. When walking through several steps to the bottom of the hall, Barty Crouch Jr. and Fenrir blocked Mr. Russell's way. The bloody werewolf said slowly in an extremely disdainful tone, "What do you want to do? Now is not the time to meet the master. You should just stay in your seat and look at your aging body. I think your meat must be very unpalatable. I can smell the breath of death from you, that incomparably decayed stench." Facing this werewolf's insult, Mr. Russell looked very calm. He leaned on his T-shaped crutch with both hands, lowered his head, and said in a flat tone, "I just want to see those new weapons now. You killed my old friends with that thing. Although I don't have any feelings for him, I also want to see what killed him. As you said, I'm dying of old age, and you have taken away my wand. Are you still afraid of what I will do? The great Dark Lord is so cautious." Hearing what the other party said, Barty Crouch Jr. couldn't grasp it. Both of them turned their heads to look at Bellatrix. After all, the other party was the person Voldemort trusted most. At this moment, Bella looked at the twitching body behind the rostrum with an extremely fascinated look, and heard that the old man wanted to see his master, and heard the other party say such disrespectful words. Bella seemed a little angry, but she, who was always arrogant, didn't think too much at the moment. She just reminded in a bad tone, "Don't play tricks, old man. You have nothing now. Offer your eternal loyalty and life to the great Dark Lord. I can consider pleading with the Great Master so that you don't have to participate in the attack on Hogwarts. For the sake of your noble surname, I will give you a way to survive." Hearing what Bella said, Barty Crouch Jr. and the two of them immediately stepped aside, and Mr. Russell also walked over from the position they gave up and slowly approached the rostrum. As Mr. Russell's pace became faster and faster, the Death Eaters present finally discovered the anomaly. At the beginning, Mr. Russell left from the side of Barty Crouch and the other two. The walking pace is very slow, like an old man walking forward step by step with a cane. But when Mr. Russell's body was 2 positions away from Barty Crouch Jr., the opponent's pace suddenly accelerated. The other party walked towards the rostrum like the wind, almost at the speed of a meter sprint. And when he was less than 2 meters away from the rostrum, Karkaroff, who had been standing by the side to act as heir, finally reacted. The other party quickly took out his wand and shouted loudly at Mr. Russell, "What do you want to do? Step back immediately, and I will warn you again not to go any further. Avada Kedavra Kedavra." Karkaroff's warning obviously had no effect, and Bella, who was standing on the other side of the rostrum, was so ruthless that the other party directly fired a killing curse. When the deathly green light was about to hit Mr. Russell, He was dodged by the opponent's deft movement. The light of the killing curse flew past Mr. Russell's cheek and hit the wall beside him. The curse left a small depression on the wall. However, Mr. Russell did not stop his pace. The other party took a big stride and moved himself very close to Voldemort's body, only half a meter away. And until this moment, Karkaroff, who hadn't made any move just now, suddenly grabbed the ankle of Mr. Russell's left foot with his right hand from behind. Karkaroff, who held Mr. Russell back, thought he had finally stopped the crazy old man, but a bright light passed in front of him. Accompanied by severe pain, he managed to grab the right hand of the opponent's ankle, but it was cut off by some sharp weapon, and that sharp weapon was falling into the hands of Mr. Russell. It was a very delicate crutch sword. The body of the sword was generally made of fine steel, and the edge was reinforced with magic mithril. In order to reduce weight, there is a groove in the center of the sword body, and some purple black paint is painted on it, which should be a highly poisonous potion. After solving the obstacles behind him, Mr. Russell finally took half a step forward, finally facing Voldemort's body face to face. Mr. Russell dexterously rotated the cane sword with his hands, grabbed the hilt of the cane sword with both hands, raised it above his head in a penetrating posture, and ruthlessly inserted the sword into the twisted body in front of him. The force of this sword piercing was very strong. The sword body, which was close to 50 centimeters, was completely pierced in, leaving only the handle of the crutch sword outside. Seeing the purple black potion in the groove of the sword body gradually being absorbed by this body, Mr. Russell breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Barty Crouch Jr. and the werewolf finally rushed to on the rostrum. The two kicked Mr. Russell's calf muscles one by one, causing the other to kneel in front of Voldemort's twisted body. And Bella, who had been under the rostrum, jumped directly on top of that body at a crazier speed, and then cried loudly in an extremely miserable voice, "No, that's impossible, you shameful traitor." Chapter 177 Voldemort returns from the dead. Seeing the completely crazy woman in front of him, Mr. Russell, who was kneeling on the knees, laughed disdainfully. He wanted to force himself to stand upright, but was killed by Barty Crouch Jr. and the werewolf beside him hold down. Seeing that his efforts to stand up straight could not be achieved, Mr. Russell had no choice but to look at the crazy woman in front of him with his own eyes, and said in an extremely disdainful tone, "Traitor, how can there be betrayal without loyalty? I have never been loyal to Voldemort. I'm only loyal to my family, my surname, and that damned interest. Don't you understand why I rely on you? I just want to use you so that I can charge a higher price to that Mr. Dumbledore. And you are just using my surname and the reputation of the Rachel family in the entire UK and European magic circles to achieve goals that you cannot achieve." After saying this, Mr. Russell scanned all the people present with his own eyes, looking at those old friends or familiar faces. They all looked like they were dying of fear at the moment. Mr. Russell felt a little disappointed at first, and then felt very relieved. He lowered his head and continued to speak slowly. "Look at what you have done now, and what the once prosperous British wizarding world has become. How many tragedies have been caused by your unprovoked killings. Although I don't have much sympathy for those who died, I still think your methods are cruel and stupid. Look around you. This is the result you want. This is the so-called wizard supremacy, a group of corrupt people, followed by a group of despicable people, meeting in a dark place. No wonder that Mr. Dumbledore hasn't looked at you until now. You are too stupid and low level." After venting all the anger in his heart, Mr. Russell didn't say anything anymore. He had been walking alone since a month ago and had no contact with anyone. "In my own memory, I have never had any inappropriate communication with anyone, and I bought enough potion from France to kill Voldemort, and finally took out the family's ancestral sword. All the preparations were for this moment." Seeing that the purple black object in the center of the sword had been completely absorbed, and the distorted object in front of him was no longer wriggling, Mr. Russell finally closed his eyes with peace of mind. In his past 70 years of life, he never imagined that he would do such a thing, and he was always described as a complete cold-blooded animal by the people around him. Even the family members who are closest to their blood will hide in their room after dinner every day and scold themselves for being ruthless and cruel. Until this moment, Mr. Russell finally became himself, a simple boy with a sense of justice. steel clang. But just as Mr. Russell was waiting for his own death, the sound of metal falling to the ground reached Mr. Russell's ears. The sound is so loud and crisp, especially in this silent conference hall. This sound caused Mr. Russell to immediately open his eyes, and he also focused all eyes on the monster behind the rostrum again. The twisted lump of flesh began to squirm again after a moment of silence, and the speed of the vibration became faster and faster, until a withered arm stretched out from the place where the crutch sword was pierced. This is because of the appearance of this arm, the crutch sword that had been pierced into the body of the meat, before breaking free from the pile of meat. Accompanied by the appearance of that arm, there was a long sigh, and a thin man with a distorted face and no nose, like a snake, appeared before everyone's eyes. The other party caressed the top of his bare head, as if there was long hair on the top of the head, and there were no pupils in the opened eyes, only a misty snow white. Guru. Accompanied by the man's return from the dead, everyone in the audience could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva, although they had long known that Cornelius Fudge in front of them was Voldemort. But seeing the other party really come back to life and stand in front of everyone, it still makes people feel a chilling feeling. As for Mr. Russell in front of Voldemort, he just felt completely incredible. You must know that the potion applied to the cane and sword was specially ordered by him. It not only contains the venom of all highly poisonous magical animals known today, but also several of the most vicious poisons that wizards can create. Only by mixing all the known highly toxic substances together and fusing them through extremely ingenious techniques can the toxin that absolutely kills all living things be produced. Obviously all the toxins had been absorbed by that body. Why was Voldemort able to be resurrected? And looking at the other party's state, it seemed that he was not affected at all. Respected master. Completely different from the fear of other people present. Several Death Eaters who had been decapitated by Bella immediately knelt down on one knee and shouted their master in an extremely flattering tone. At the same time, Bella also took out a strange magic wand from her body. That magic wand was just like the crutch the other party was leaning on, and its shape was exactly like a pale bone. The mad woman held the wand carefully, walked up to Voldemort step by step, then knelt down on one knee, held the wand above her head with both hands, and said flatteringly to Voldemort in front of her, "The Great Master, the Eternal and Immortal Dark Lord, now return your wand to you, and may all wizards submit to your feet. The Eternal Immortal Dark Lord. The Eternal Immortal Dark Lord." After Bella uttered this rainbow fart, the other Death Eaters at the scene immediately yelled, and as they yelled, everyone else couldn't help but yell slogans. For a moment, the slogan of Eternal and Immortal Dark Lord echoed constantly in this most sacred place of judgment of the British Ministry of Magic. But at this time, the Dark Lord did not take his wand. He completely pulled out from the twisted body, put on the iconic black robe, and walked barefoot to the rostrum step by step. Then he bent down and picked up the crutch sword that was still stuck in his body just now, and with his dry left hand with long nails, he gently stroked the moonlight-like blade of the sword. Finally, under Mr. Russell's surprised gaze, Voldemort licked the groove in the middle of the blade with his tongue, filled all the remaining purple-black substance into his mouth, and then closed his eyes to pretend to enjoy it. It seemed that he was tasting some peerless delicacies. After tasting for a while, Voldemort opened his eyes and said plainly, "A combination like a genius. No one can escape from this poison, but if you know it in advance, you can concoct the corresponding antidote." I'm right, Mr. Russell Rosier, and my faithful servant, Mr. Rufus Scrimgeour. Chapter 178 Mr. Russell S death. Hearing Voldemort's words, everyone present all turned their gazes to Mr. Scrimgeour, who was looking extremely embarrassed under the rostrum. But at this moment, Voldemort seemed a little unsatisfied. He stretched out his hand and invited Mr. Scrimgeour to come to his side. "Come up, my loyal servant. Don't be shy. Loyal people should be rewarded. Come and accept the reward from the Dark Lord." Hearing what the other party had said, Mr. Scrimgeour knew that he had no way to escape, so he could only bite the bullet and walk towards the rostrum. Along the way, he felt all kinds of eyes, including doubts, disgust, and the envious eyes of Karkaroff, whose palm had been cut off. But what made him feel most uncomfortable was Mr. Russell's gaze, which revealed confusion and unbelievability. Mr. Scrimgeour could only bite the bullet, not looking at Mr. Russell's bewildered eyes, walked quickly to Voldemort, and then followed other Death Eaters, knelt down on one knee, and lowered his head and said slowly, "My great master, I offer you my personal and eternal allegiance." Looking at the young man kneeling on one knee in front of him, Voldemort felt very satisfied, and said slowly, "Extend your right hand, to accept the praise and reward from the Dark Lord. This is the honor you deserve." Hearing the other party's words, Mr. Scrimgeour could probably guess what reward the other party wanted to give him, so he could only curse inwardly, "It's really picky." Reluctantly stretched out his right hand, as expected. Looking at the other's smooth arm, Voldemort took the wand from Bella's hand, and tapped Mr. Scrimgeour's wrist lightly. Accompanied by Voldemort's action, Mr. Scrimgeour felt pain in his wrist, as if being scorched by a soldering iron. After the pain disappeared, Mr. Scrimgeour withdrew his right hand, and sure enough, a dark mark appeared on his wrist. Looking at the poisonous snake spit out from the skull, Scrimgeour really wanted to cry, but could only curse in his heart, "You have no taste at all. No wonder no one joins your crap organization." But at the same time, he lowered his head, and said in an extremely humble tone, "Thank you for your gift, Master. I will go through fire and water for you, until I give my own life." After hearing Mr. Scrimgeour's words of loyalty again, Voldemort nodded in satisfaction, and then put the wand back into the palms of both hands that Bella hadn't withdrawn. Now is not the time to use this. For such an insidious traitor, we must use the other party's betrayal, to punish the other party. As he said that, Voldemort picked up the crutch sword that he had just put down again, and then waved his hand, signaling Barty Crouch Jr. to let go of Mr. Russell, who was controlled by them. Mr. Russell, who broke free from the shackles, immediately stood up, then looked into Voldemort's eyes with his own eyes, and finally said something slowly from his throat. "It seems that you are still attractive. At least you can attract despicable people like Scrimgeour, shameless people who have no lower limit to join you. I would like to express my apologies to you for this, but all the comments I have made about you and your organization just now cannot be taken back, because that is an unchangeable fact." Faced with this face-to-face taunt, Voldemort was rarely angry. He continued to caress the gorgeous blade of the sword, looking at the other side's unconvinced eyes, and said slowly, "I don't hate what you just said about me. Cruelty and cruelty are never derogatory terms in any sense in my world. You deny my method, but you don't deny my ideal, which means that deep in your mind, you agree with wizard supremacy. A cold-blooded and profit-oriented person, like you, should have become my most capable assistant and partner. I just didn't expect that the legendary assassin would be you, Mr. Russell Rosier." After hearing what Voldemort said, Mr. Russell fell silent. He didn't know whether he was persuaded by the other party, or he didn't want to say anything to the other party. Compared to Mr. Russell's silence, Voldemort seemed to have a lot to say. He turned and looked at the people present, and said loudly, "The fundamental rules of the world's operation are the rules and regulations established by violence. Without absolute huge profits, there is no capital for negotiation. Magic is power. Magic only shines on a few people. We have natural domination over muggles. Those are stupid animals who dare to call themselves our own kind. They have polluted this world and are pure and noble blood. We can only expel them from this world painlessly with the utmost intolerance and kindness, together with those wizards who are unwilling to cooperate with us. Only after the darkest killing can the brightest future be greeted. I will lead you to that future, a pure world without any pollution." Speaking of rising, Voldemort also went into a frenzy and raised his hands, as if the beautiful future she dreamed of was on the ceiling of this hall, and he could have it at his fingertips, as long as he stretched out his hands. That's not the case, then it's simply impossible to welcome the future. Just when Voldemort was intoxicated with himself, Mr. Russell, who had been silent just now, roared loudly again. He originally wanted to turn around and face everyone, but was controlled by the two behind him, Barty Crouch Jr., and he was firmly pressed in place, unable to twist his body. But even so, Mr. Russell still turned his head with the greatest strength, looked at everyone present and shouted loudly, "That's impossible to usher in any future. We've made a redemptive mistake. We used to think that muggles are just a bunch of idiots. A simple dementia curse can disrupt their society, but the situation is different now. They have various psychological testing methods, and even many question and answer methods that we can't even imagine. With their huge numbers and amazing intelligence, soon after the war begins, there will be a complete set of theories to distinguish wizards and muggles, and their technology. You have witnessed the power of their weapons. That is Mr. Bork in your seat. Didn't you see his blood in the big hole in his body? August Dumbledore, the future he envisioned, can only be realized. We must unite, and unite as a whole to fight and negotiate with muggles. But no matter what, the object of our solidarity is definitely not this guy, a madman with an abnormal mind who only knows how to kill us. This excited speech did not have time to end. Voldemort had already turned around and inserted the crutch sword in his hand directly into Mr. Russell's body. The place where the sword was inserted was very precise, and the sword directly pierced Mr. Russell's heart, causing great pain, plus the blood rushing from the lungs to the throat. Mr. Russell couldn't speak at all for a while, but today, he still has a lot to say to everyone, so under this situation, he still wants to turn his head and give a speech to everyone. But Voldemort didn't give him any chance to speak. He gently turned the handle of his cane and sword, and with the other hand, he grabbed Mr. Russell's hair and raised his head. I stared at the other party with those terrifying eyes and whispered in his ear, "I wish you a good night's sleep, Mr. Rosier." The speech was very inspiring, but it's better not to continue. After finishing speaking, Voldemort violently turned the handle of the cane sword half a circle, and then suddenly pulled the blade out of the opponent's body. This violent movement caused the opponent's heart to be completely smashed, and the air entered, and then a strong cavity effect is formed. Under the action of the chest muscles, the blood from the arteries spewed out from the wound like a fountain. The huge amount of blood loss caused Mr. Russell to fall to the ground. His vision became more and more blurred, and his body felt more and more cold. Chapter 179 Hufflepuffs in the Dark. Are we really going to that place? This is Mr. Dumbledore's private residence. Isn't it rude for us to break in so rashly? And should we say hello to Mr. Dumbledore, who is now in the principal's office? Will we be punished for doing so? Under the leadership of Julius, a group of Hufflepuffs followed behind him, quietly approaching the lakeside villa through the night. However, compared to those bold and reckless Gryffindors, the calm and analytical Ravenclaws, or the ambitious Slytherins, this group of little badgers is much more cowardly. They kept discussing along the way whether they would be punished by Augustus for these actions if Julius hadn't blocked the front of the team and Cedric had blocked the back of the team. It is not guaranteed that many little badgers will take the opportunity to slip away during the short few steps. Hearing the constant discussion behind him and the lakeside villa close in front of him, Julius finally couldn't bear the anger in his heart, turned around and looked at everyone present and shouted loudly, "Shut up, Mr. Dumbledore, Mr. Dumbledore, how many times do you have to repeat this name? I said he is just your classmate." When addressing him, call him by his first name directly, and as a member of the Dumbledore family, I also own part of the property rights to this building. I just went to his room and took something that belonged to both of us. There is no moral issue at all, and he has no reason to punish us for it. Shut up your twittering now and follow my steps. Let's go in and get something special. Hufflepuff must come out on top in this battle. The loose learning atmosphere in the past must be changed. We are the college with the largest number of people. We must use this action to open everyone's eyes. Looking at the high-spirited young man in front of him, everyone present was inspired by his speech, but it was only for a short period of time, maybe only for a few seconds. One of the chubby Hufflepuff boys looked at the moon in the sky, guessed that it was time for supper, then rubbed his stomach and whispered, "At this time, there will be fresh hotcakes and strawberry pies in the cafeteria of the college. It is said that they are specially added midnight snacks, with a glass of pumpkin juice with milk." Oh my god, I'm hungry again now. The other party's voice was very low, but it was unusually loud in this silent night. These words made the other students present feel hungry. They all looked longingly at Julius, who was standing in front of the line, wanting him to let him go back and go to the cafeteria to have supper with other parents of students, of course, mainly the parents of students who graduated from Hufflepuff College. Julius, who had just finished his speech, felt extremely speechless. He looked at the chubby classmate and took out a bottle of potion with a heavy expression. Then, in a cold voice, he looked at everyone present and said slowly, "This is a potion I specially refined. It is colorless, tasteless, and has no very special effects. It just makes people who drink it feel less hungry and hungry for a whole day. You will lose interest in all the delicacies, and even if you forcefully eat the delicacies, your tongue will not feel any taste. Don't mention any supper to me anymore. If you are really hungry, you can come over and drink this bottle of potion. It contains all the energy a normal person needs for a day, and it can completely fight the hunger in your belly." After finishing speaking, Julius scanned all the people present with his own eyes, held the potion with his right hand, and stretched it out to all the people present, especially with his eyes, the little chubby man who first proposed hunger. Looking at the potion in Julius' hand, and what the other party said just now, everyone present could not help but shudder. For this group of Hufflepuffs, Voldemort felt no fear at all. Hufflepuffs had always lived peacefully, but they were definitely no worse than Gryffindors in terms of courage. For the dark wizards who dare to attack their school, the Hufflepuff students certainly have the courage to fight against each other. However, what Julius just said is something that every Hufflepuff is deeply afraid of, unable to feel hunger and appetite, and loses interest in all delicacies. Even if you eat the delicacies in your mouth, you will not taste the taste. Oh Merlin's shorts, is there a more cruel curse than this in the world? Under the threat of Julius, the group of Hufflepuffs barely suppressed their desire for food, followed each other silently, and headed towards the lakeside villa under the moonlight. After walking for about 5 minutes, the group of people finally came to the gate of the villa by the lake. Looking at the closed gate, some people couldn't help but say, "It seems that the owner is not at home. It is very impolite to visit Ashley at this time. Why don't we go back now, and we should be able to eat fresh strawberry pie." These words did not arouse the commotion of the crowd as before, because they saw that Julius did not put the bottle of potion back into his small satchel, but directly pinned the potion bottle to his belt superior. At the same time, the other party's eyes revealed a murderous look, a sense of terror that Hufflepuff had never experienced before. After seeing that there was no more commotion in the crowd, Julius turned to look at the gate, which was a top-level alchemy anti-theft gate specially built by Augustus. It needs to be unlocked by fingerprint pupils and other methods, but for Julius, this door has a fatal bug. That is, it can be unlocked through blood. As duplicates created by Augustus, Julius and Augustus are essentially one person. Their two bodies are almost identical. The only difference is that the two souls are independent of each other. Julius took out his prickly ashwood wand and stroked lightly on the palm of his left hand, and slightly golden blood flowed out from the wound. Then Julius pressed the palm of the left hand to the center of the gate, touching the gate of Julius' blood, and the complex magic patterns on it all shone with a faint blue light. Finally, with the sound of mechanical gears turning, the metal door in front of him slowly and automatically separated to the two sides. Seeing the door open, Julius walked in first and waved his hand backwards, gesturing for all the students behind him to follow, but it didn't seem to have any effect. After a full minute, the group of Hufflepuffs reluctantly walked into the luxurious villa under the threat of Julius and the urging of Cedric. Chapter 180 AUGUSTUS&-039 S personal room. As these people stepped into the villa, the crystal chandelier that had been off in the villa immediately shone brightly. The golden light illuminated the entire villa brightly, allowing everyone present to see clearly the decorations in the villa. It's not that these people have never been to this place. When Draco and his two followers lived here, they would often invite some students from other houses and Slytherin house to come here for afternoon tea to highlight their noble. And there has always been a room for Miss Hall and a few ladies. Before the ladies, they would invite some good friends to come here for parties. However, as they grow older, children's hearts become more and more complicated. So after the arrival of Harley's distant aunt, Harley took the lead in moving out of here. Not long after, the dormitories of Slytherin College were remodeled, and Draco and his two followers also left here. As the eldest sister of Gryffindor College, Ariana naturally didn't know how to live here. Hermione left here too. As a result, this place became Augustus's personal residence, and at the same time, it was also the most desirable workplace for members of the Saints' Church. As long as they could come and work here, it meant that they could gain a good position in the future changes. As a result, some changes have taken place in the decoration style here. There are no rows of exquisite and luxurious European style small tables and chairs before, and the gorgeous curtains with lace trims hanging next to the floor to ceiling windows. Instead, only the Baroque style luxurious metal decorations are still shining there, and the flags of the Saints' Church are hung in all conspicuous places in the hall. After the small table and chairs for afternoon tea were removed, it was replaced by a huge conference table, luxuriously decorated conference seats, and a more luxurious chief seat. This is not so much a place to stay as it is a luxurious office space, and all the places reveal majesty and grandeur. Just standing here, people will feel an invisible pressure covering the whole body. And Julius didn't have any baggage at all. He walked skillfully along the revolving building at the end of the hall to the second floor, and kept waving his hands as he walked up, signaling for everyone present to follow. Under continuous urging, the other people present had no choice but to follow Julius up the stairs to the second floor. The accommodation located on the second floor is a bit like a classical hotel. 2 rows of rooms are separated door to door, and a long corridor runs through it. Everyone walked along the corridor to the depths. After walking through about 5 rooms with doors facing each other, at the end of the corridor, there was a door facing the front of the corridor. Looking at the pattern on the front of the gate, everyone can confirm that this is Augustus Dumbledore's personal room. Although it seemed very disrespectful to do so, entering someone's personal room privately without any permission. But when the incident came to an end, many people couldn't help but feel a little excitement from their hearts. Especially some of the girls who followed. They stood together and whispered to each other, and even let out some sparse laughter from time to time. It seemed to be discussing some very interesting topics, and the boys felt a little curious, wanting to see what the perfect leader looks like in ordinary life. Facing everyone's curiosity, Julius didn't feel anything wrong. He still used his own blood to unlock the metal door in front of him as he did when he first entered the villa. Then he led everyone to Augustus's room. Augustus's room was very spacious, and there was a luxurious single bed in the center. The bed was in the style of a French court with a thick ceiling, cover and 4 columns with carved patterns. On the left side of the big bed is a row of wardrobes, which contain all kinds of men's clothes, most of which are black suits or dark dresses. However, everyone still noticed with keen eyes that there was a pink rabbit pajamas in the corner of the closet. This pajamas should have been given to him by Principal Dumbledore, because many people have watched the principal walk around wearing Godzilla or other animal pajamas on Halloween or Christmas. And of course Professor Andres, the other party, prefers the Q version of the squirrel. There is a Q version of the German Shepherd. This piece of clothing was placed in the corner of the closet. It was obvious that the owner of the room didn't like it, but the clothes were carefully folded and neatly placed, and they were not thrown away casually, which showed that the other party still cherished this gift very much. Unlike many people's imaginations, Augustus's personal room was not as spotless as imagined. The quilt was randomly rolled up and thrown on the bed, and the changed clothes were also randomly thrown in the corner of the bedside table. It was piled up on top of each other, probably because the house elves were sent to work in the castle, and no one helped him wash the clothes, so the clothes were piled up in such a disorderly manner. Socks and shoes were thrown all over the floor, and a few sharp-eyed girls also found some personal underwear. Compared with the chaotic scene on the bed, the one on the left side of the big bed is a retro-style desk made of mahogany. The desk is spotless, and 4 different types of pens are neatly arranged in the center of the desk. The orientation of the caps is the same. There are some letters and work materials on the desk, and they are strictly divided into 3 areas. They have been processed and need to be processed urgently so they can be postponed. It can be seen that the owner of the room is quite serious about his work, and there are a lot of photos on the desk. The largest photo in it is a group photo of Augustus and Principal Dumbledore. It should have been taken very early. At that time, Augustus was still a little immature, and the background of the photo should be in Diagon Alley Street. In the second photo, there are many characters that the students have never seen before, including a bald old man, a handsome old man with a beautiful mustache, and a beautiful girl with a very hot body. or an older lady with outstanding temperament, but for his college life, Augustus also seems to cherish these moments very much. Among the photos are photos with various students. There are also photos taken during group activities, which he carefully put into photo frames and placed in the corner of the large desk by category. And some boys found that those photo frames were placed at an angle that could just face the center of the desk. That is to say, if someone came to work here, sitting on that chair, he could see all the photos just by turning his head slightly. These various details attracted everyone present, and most of the girls gathered around Augustus' wardrobe. They were chattering and whispering, while the boys gathered around the desk, looking at the spotless and luxurious desk, and the neatly placed photo frames, looking at each other for clues. And just when Augustus's changed clothes were about to be taken away by those girls in the name of helping to wash the clothes, there are also some boys who have been unable to find photos of themselves appearing in the camera, and when they start to have conflicts with some students who mock themselves, Julius finally couldn't help but drank loudly. "Stop your rude behavior. We are here to hold weapons. There is no need to cause more traces of me. Everyone looks at me. We are going in." Speaking of which, Julius suddenly turned the bedside lamp on the left side of the bed, and then accompanied by a mechanical turning sound, a secret door appeared on the left side of the bedside lamp. As the secret door slowly opened, Julius made an elegant gesture to invite in, and then said slowly, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dumbledore family arsenal, jointly owned by Augustus Dumbledore and Julius Dumbledore. Chapter 181 JULIUS and -039, Persuasion." Hearing what Julius said, everyone present finally reluctantly entered through the small door. The secret door in front of him is so narrow, the height will never exceed 1.5 meters, and the width can only accommodate 2 people walking side by side. But when everyone walked to the inside of the secret door, they suddenly felt a sense of enlightenment. There was a very huge warehouse inside. The top of the warehouse was lit by 2 rows of high wattage incandescent lamps, and in the middle of the warehouse stood some strange vehicles that no Hufflepuff student had ever seen. Those vehicles were either track driven, or had at least 6 huge wheels. Each vehicle had a flat turret on top, and in the center of the turret were 2 large pipes shining with cold light. On both sides of the warehouse, including on the walls of the warehouse, there are all kinds of firearms, long and short, small caliber and large caliber. M2 Browning heavy machine gun. It is said that this thing has been in service for many years, but it is still very reliable. Look at the heatsink on the barrel and the huge bullet. I can assure you there is nothing more reliable than these. How powerful they are. Facing these numerous weapons, the boys of Hufflepuff were obviously more interested. Cedric could not help sighing as he stroked the M2 Browning heavy machine gun on the floor. Compared with those firearms, Julius brought a large box of bullets. On the wooden boxes containing the bullets, there was a huge skull mark painted on it, and the words were marked under the mark. "Extremely dangerous. Please do not touch." However, Julius obviously didn't care about these unnecessary warnings. He directly picked up a crowbar from his side and pried open the 2 wooden boxes. Then he took out the large caliber machine gun ammunition with the green mark on the warhead in the wooden box, held a bullet in his hand, and finally showed it in front of everyone and said slowly, "The most powerful large caliber machine gun ammunition that can be found here contains many kinds of powerful spells. People who are hit by such ammunition will never experience any pain. It's just that, if you want to pack up your own body, it may take a little more effort. After all, it will take a little more time to find your own fragments from multiple places." What Julius said made everyone present feel a little speechless, including Cedric, who was still stroking the M2 Browning heavy machine gun just now. Under the pressure of his classmates' eyes, he had no choice but to ask resentfully, "Mr. Augustus has already arranged everything that needs to be defended. Isn't it a bit superfluous for us to do so? And these weapons are really too brutal." I don't deny that those people chose to stay on Voldemort's side, which was a very serious choice error, but many of them did not let go of any crime that should be paid for with their lives. At the same time, many of them have more or less blood ties with most of the people in our school, and directly used such violent means to kill them. This will undoubtedly attract huge pressure from public opinion. I think the Frigga bullet prepared by Mr. Augustus is quite good. What do you think, Mr. Dumbledore? After listening to Cedric's words and seeing the approving eyes of other people present, Julius still held the .50 caliber machine gun in one hand. At the same time, he stretched out a finger and shook it left and right, and finally said slowly in a flat tone, "For those who have gone astray, of course we need to give them a chance to reform themselves, but please don't forget that among Voldemort's ranks, there are many vile idiots with hands stained with the blood of innocent people, such as the notorious werewolf. I heard that he will also participate in the attack on Hogwarts. For those who bear the blood debt, take him out of this world with one bullet without pain. It is already the greatest kindness to them. I never believe that everyone has the will to reform. Some people have long been blinded by blood and desire for strength. They must die here, and no one can change this fact and decision." The words of Julius caused everyone present to shake a bit, but after all, most of the people present were not adults at all, so it still made many people feel overwhelmed to let them rashly deprive other people of their lives. I can't get over the barrier in my heart. Looking at the group of young girls who were still wandering in front of him, Julius didn't force them to make a choice on the spot. He just said calmly, while stroking the cold bullets in the ammunition box, "If you are really in doubt, why not take the weapon back first, and then spend the rest of the night talking to your parents? Although the time is a bit short, there are only 2 hours left until 12 midnight, but I believe that when you hear about the experiences of those parents, you should be able to make a basic factual judgment. Many cruel crimes cannot be dismissed with a simple sentence of forgiveness. If forgiving them is something Merlin can do, then what we have to do is send them to communicate with Merlin." Although Julius's words did not directly dispel the confusion in everyone's minds, they did achieve some results. Most of the boys present started queuing up to get ammunition from Julius. Only some girls seemed a bit unacceptable to these cold steel products. "It's so ugly. Why do these weapons always have no aesthetic feeling? They say that the people who designed these weapons don't have any aesthetic research." Among them, several senior girls couldn't help complaining while stroking the black barrels of the guns present. In the face of such complaints, Julius appeared unusually magnanimous. He took out his pepperwood wand and tapped lightly on those rifles. Immediately, various decals and colorful colors began to appear on the pitch black gun body, decorating these killing weapons, making people feel a kind of inexplicable weirdness. All element can be customized. You can name any color you want. Don't forget that we are wizards. Great magic. Can do anything we want. This wonderful performance made everyone present feel excited. They gathered around one after another, wanting to customize a set of gun body skins that belonged to them. Chapter 182 Memories of the Past. Just as Julius was standing in Augustus' secret room, distributing ammunition wantonly, Augustus was in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts. Looking at this special picture in front of him, Augustus, who was sitting behind the principal's desk, had a huge light curtain in front of him, like an old-fashioned movie, showing a person's past. The protagonist in the picture is Mr. Russell Rosier, and the interpretation should be the past memories of the other party. When I was young, I came to the UK because of my family and grew up happily among the Richel family in the UK. It should be said that Mr. Russell's childhood life should be considered relatively happy, but all the childhood happiness came to an abrupt end when the other party was 8 years old. In that year, Grindelwald's organization and movement officially failed, and was unanimously criticized by all wizards and the Ministry of Magic as the most dangerous dark wizard in history. The first generation of Dark Lord, as loyal supporters of Grindelwald, even the Rosier family in the UK, was affected by that huge change. After all, you ask those senior officials of the British Ministry of Magic to go to Europe to directly resist Grindelwald. They probably don't have the courage. But after the other party failed, they used this as an excuse to liquidate those wizard families in England that had connections with Grindelwald. Not only do they have the guts to search for the wealth accumulated by the other party for thousands of years, but they are also quite courageous. The nightmare of the Rosier family officially began on that day. 3 of the 4,000-year-old family castles were directly taken away by the group of bugs from the Ministry of Magic. And because his father died during Grindelwald's movement, the burden of the whole family could not help but fall on Mr. Russell's mother and sister. As two strong women, Mr. Russell's mother and sister tried their best to restore the reputation of the Rosier family in the UK in just 4 or 5 years. But also because the two of them are women, in the process, they will inevitably suffer some unbearable physical and mental torture. From the memory of Mr. Russell, he had stood on the tower of the castle countless times, looking at some wretched looking officials of the Ministry of Magic who seemed to be in power. Frequent meetings with my mother and young and beautiful sister. It is not difficult to imagine that at that moment, those cruel scenes left some indelible wounds in the heart of the young Mr. Russell. After this scene ended, Mr. Russell came to Hogwarts immediately. There are very few memories about this scene. It only lasted less than 5 minutes, but there were still a few memories in it, which Mr. Russell should still remember, such as the sorting ceremony. As a wizard of noble origin, of course the other party wants to join Slytherin, so that he can get in touch with more young people of the same level, and add some weight of friendship to his future life. But unfortunately, the sorting hat finally sorted him into Gryffindor. Judging from the surprised expression on the other side, Mr. Russell didn't seem to be mentally prepared for this. If you can see Mr. Russell's powerful expression control at this time, the surprised expression only stayed on the other party's young face for less than half a minute. After confirming that the result could not be changed, Mr. Russell calmly took off the sorting hat on his head and walked slowly towards the Gryffindor long table in an extremely calm and elegant posture. After the sorting ceremony was over, the other party didn't have many memories about the college in his mind, only the process of some exams, and his own joy when he got excellent grades in all subjects. After graduating from Hogwarts, Mr. Russell relied on his tough wrist, his calmness and ruthlessness beyond ordinary people. After successfully becoming the patriarch of the Rochelle family in England, the next memory is his long life as the patriarch. But this memory can't be called beautiful. Some just have a cold feeling from the whole process, as if the man in front of him is just a cold machine. He doesn't have any personal emotions, and no emotions can affect his judgment. He will only make the choice that is most beneficial to the family year after year. Even though these choices would bring great pain to him personally, and even his heirs, the other party still chose the option that was most beneficial to the family without hesitation in the face of that choice. And after this not so good memory, the memory fragments seemed to be in chaos, as if he personally disrupted his own memory fragments with external force. From the fragments, I could only see that the other party was wearing a black robe and went to Paris, France, to buy a bottle of purple black potion in a small shop. Without your arrangements, Voldemort might be dead in the Ministry of Magic by now, I can assure you. That potion can kill any living creature in the world, without exception. After watching all these memories, Professor Snape, who was beside Augustus, still couldn't help but whispered. Facing the questioning tone of the other party, Augustus looked a little embarrassed. He was silent for a while, and then spoke slowly. I didn't expect that it would be the most courageous act of this gentleman. I have thought about the list of many people, but I never thought about it. The former patriarch of the Rosier family, who has always been known for his ruthlessness, would have such great courage, but judging from this memory, Voldemort should not be able to find any useful information. He can only rely on Mr. Scrimgeour. Our goal has been achieved. It's just a process, and it doesn't quite meet the expectations of all our previous assumptions. Hearing this, Professor Snape didn't say anything anymore. He slowly got up and looked at Augustus's face and reminded him softly, you should be very weak now. This is the information you disclosed to the other party, and you look a little too excited now. I don't hold any comment on your behavior, but I hope this is the last time, and there is no need to cause unnecessary death and pain. Of course people like Bella and Fenrir, if you want to kill each other, I don't have any objections. After finishing speaking, Professor Snape turned around and walked out of the principal's office and finally stopped at the door of the principal's office, looking at the light curtain that was still constantly unfolding. Can't help but commented. Calm analysis and long-term planning. Never compromise in the face of death. Dare to face all the consequences of your actions without involving others. I have to say that this is the courage of Gryffindor, and I admire it. After finishing speaking, Professor Snape left the principal's office, and just when Augustus was about to leave, the sorting hat had been lying on the bookshelf in the office, and he opened his mouth and said, "There is no problem with my judgment. In fact, the other party was indeed able to go to Slytherin at that time because he possessed all the qualities of Slytherin: cold, rational, and full of ambition. But he also has a quality that other Slytherins don't have, that is, the brave heart hidden under his appearance, like a fire burning on the ice. Seems unreasonable, but it cannot be denied exist. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, The Image of Memories. Can you guarantee that the memory you showed me is absolutely true and reliable? If there is even half of it false, the honor I bestow on you can take your life away at any time. It was Voldemort who said this, and now he, Mr. Scrimgeour, and Bella were watching a memory projection in the office of the Minister of the British Ministry of Magic. To say that this still comes from Augustus's alchemy technique, the pensieve used by the other party to view memories has been simply modified so that it can project personal memories like a projector. And this memory should be the memory of a certain student in the Hogwarts Great Hall, and it should be one of the students who blocked the door. The memory of the other party is very clear, from the time they gathered to block the door, to Augustus resurrecting Mizzen with magic, and Augustus controlling all the parents and students of the students. All the memories are very clear, and they are constantly playing back and forth on the projected light curtain. It seems that Mr. Dumbledore is not as benevolent as he said, but just a hypocritical guy who likes to play tricks on the surface. After watching all the memories, Bella, who had been standing beside Voldemort, couldn't help but mocked. Compared with most of the people present, who paid more attention to the group of selfish parents and students, Voldemort paid more attention to Augustus' method of resurrecting the two ladies. Although he is still not sure how many tricks the young man in the picture has not used. But what Voldemort can be sure of is that no matter how powerful a wizard is, it is impossible to bring two dead people back to the world without paying any price. So Voldemort began to watch the scene of Augustus resurrecting Mizzen repeatedly. After watching it more than 10 times, Voldemort looked at Mr. Scrimgeour standing aside and asked slowly, "You are sure that Augustus is very weak now, and you have also confirmed that Ravenclaw's crown and Hufflepuff's gold cup are stored in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts?" "I need an accurate answer, Mr. Scrimgeour. You must know that you have witnessed my resurrection from the dead. Even if this operation failed, the eternal and immortal Dark Lord also has enough ways to torture you to death." Listening to the calm tone of the other party, but looking up to see Voldemort's distorted facial features, Mr. Scrimgeour's just prepared answer was choked in his throat for a while, and he didn't know how to start it. This behavior immediately aroused the vigilance of the other people present, and the madwoman who reacted the most violently took out her strange wand, pointed at Mr. Scrimgeour and shouted loudly, "I knew this guy was dishonest. He didn't have any accurate information at all, or he was simply a spy sent by the so-called Dumbledore. We should just kill him right here, then chop off his head, hang it on a high flagpole, pick his head, and go to Hogwarts. Let the group of stubborn guys take a look. What will happen to those who go against the will of the Dark Lord?" Seeing that crazy woman getting closer and closer to him, Mr. Scrimgeour's scalp began to tingle, and he really wanted to start explaining all this in conventional language. But I also feel that it doesn't work at all. The group of people in front of me is simply weird, a leader with abnormal brains and sometimes ineffectiveness, and a lady who is completely psychopathic. A noble young master who obviously has a very good family background, but is willing to betray his family and father, and a despicable and shameless werewolf with blood and debts, plus a cripple whose palm was cut off. This group of people is not so much an organization as it is a mob of people with abnormal brains. Their IQs are sometimes online and sometimes not online. It is really difficult to deal with them. While Mr. Scrimgeour was still thinking about how to explain all this, a dull male voice came slowly from behind Mr. Stringer. "There is no need to ask about all this anymore. I can tell you clearly that everything you see is true. I came here to receive my due reward. I revealed important information to you and kept your secret until the stipulated time. You have about an hour to give me orders, and after 12 o'clock this evening there will be no further relations between us." Mr. Tom Riddle, as he spoke, Professor Snape slowly walked out from behind Mr. Scrimgeour, looked at the 6 people present, and calmly stretched out his right hand towards Voldemort. This move didn't anger Voldemort, but Bella next to him couldn't stand it anymore. The crazy woman raised her wand and yelled at Professor Snape. "How dare you call the Dark Lord that, you shameful coward? What do you think you are? I'm going to take you." Before Bella finished speaking, Professor Snape directly interrupted the other party's speech, and the way of fighting was also rough and not in line with gentleman's etiquette. Professor Snape slapped the other party directly, leaving a bright red palm print on the crazy woman's crazy face. After smoking that crazy woman's big pussy pocket, Professor Snape took out a clean white handkerchief from his jacket pocket, wiped the right hand that was used to hit someone, and then threw the handkerchief casually on the crazy woman's face. Finally, under the watchful eyes of the other 3 Death Eaters present, he stretched out his right hand to Voldemort again. At this time, Voldemort didn't say anything else. He just looked at Professor Snape, whose personality and appearance had completely changed, and sighed after being silent for a while. "Severus, you are indeed the outstanding member I value most. Your professional quality and superb quick thinking are the necessary conditions for all success. I will always reserve a vacancy for you here. After tonight is over, I believe you can make the right decision. But before that, I still want to ask you seriously. Can you assure me that everything in this picture is real?" Facing the other party's inquiry, Professor Snape didn't explain anything anymore. He directly took out his wand, held it between his eyebrows, and said loudly, "With the name of Severus Snape as a guarantee, I assure everyone present that all the pictures of this memory that everyone has watched are true and valid." Chapter 184 Final Preparations Before the War. Hearing Professor Snape swear by his own name, the tense atmosphere present could not help but subside a little. In the wizarding world, swearing by his name is still very convincing. So Ravenclaw's diadem and Hufflepuff's cup are in the headmaster's office at Hogwarts. After basically confirming the authenticity of the picture, Voldemort couldn't help but continued to ask. Facing this question, Professor Snape just responded coldly, "I'm sorry, Mr. Riddle, I don't seem to have any reason to answer your question. We are just a simple transaction relationship. The reason why I did that just now is only for the smooth progress of the transaction. You can either say your request now, either give me what I want, and after 12 o'clock tonight, there will be no relationship between us." Hearing Professor Snape's cold response, Voldemort's face became a bit ugly, but he still stretched out his right hand and shook it in the air. A bottle of pink potion appeared out of nowhere in Voldemort's hands. Voldemort handed the bottle of potion to Professor Snape, and then said softly, "As long as you have this, you can make that she fall in love with you completely, and the missing memories in your mind will be completed. Rest assured that there is absolutely nothing in it that will harm your body. This is a reward for you, or that sentence, if you want to come back to me. I have always reserved a place for you, Severus, one of my most capable men." Taking the bottle of potion from Voldemort's hand, Professor Snape didn't open it for inspection, only through the appearance and color of the potion. "I have already basically judged what substance this bottle of potion is made of, but because of my professionalism, I also want to maintain the smooth progress of this transaction." Professor Snape didn't immediately show a disdainful expression, but silently put away the bottle of potion, and then continued to look at Voldemort's face and asked softly, "What about your request? I believe that with your character, you will not give something to others for nothing. Please tell me what you want from me, as soon as possible." Seeing Professor Snape being so direct, Voldemort, who wanted to continue fooling around, had no choice but to express his request directly. "After the start of the Hogwarts battle today, I want you to take him to the Riddle family cemetery. As for how to do it, I trust Severus. You must have your own accurate judgment. As long as you bring the other party there, all problems will be solved." After listening to the other party's request, Professor Snape turned and left the office without any intention of staying. It wasn't until Professor Snape left that Voldemort looked at the 5 people present again and said in a low tone, "Our long-term preparation has finally ushered in the moment of harvest. It seems that Severus is still the same as before, but a superb egoist. Why didn't I realize that such a seemingly ruthless person is willing to sacrifice everything for a woman? It seems that people always have an unknown side. How about you? If so, please expose it as soon as possible and don't show any inappropriate behavior when the real battle comes. These cold words kept echoing in the office as if they wanted to turn everyone's heart out. Hearing that, almost everyone present couldn't help but shudder. Only the crazy woman Bella said loudly as before, "We can't be like that shameful coward. Our loyalty to the Dark Lord is impeccable. He dared to hit me in the face. After this battle is over, I must punish him severely. I will smash every inch of his bones and let him die slowly in pain." Hearing Bella's words, Voldemort just waved his hand lightly and explained softly, "The current humiliation is just for the better completion of the plan. We don't like to make superficial things like that, Mr. Dumbledore. It seems that the information we got is correct. When the other party cast the resurrection magic, although it seemed extremely easy, it actually paid a huge price. He is very weak now, and with our preparations in the Riddle family cemetery, this Mr. Dumbledore will die in the Riddle family cemetery tonight." Hearing what Voldemort said, Barty Crouch Jr. quickly flattered him. "It's already an honor for that Dumbledore to die in the Dark Lord's family cemetery. Before the words of flattery could be finished, Barty Crouch Jr. was directly sent flying by Voldemort's spell, and the wound on his back, which he had healed with great difficulty, ruptured again. "What is the Dark Lord's family cemetery? What do I have to do with the Riddle family? Those dirty Muggle idiots. What does it have to do with the great Dark Lord? This is the last time, Mr. Crouch. Stop saying the wrong thing. How are the wizards under our control now? We need to put them all into the first echelon attacking Hogwarts. In order to attract the opponent's firepower and find out the truth of the opponent. Although Hogwarts is only a school in name, it was also a bunker to protect wizards from Muggle persecution thousands of years ago." When asked this question, Barty Crouch Jr., grinning in pain from a broken back wound, had no choice but to endure the severe pain in his back, stood up cautiously, lowered his head and said humbly, "No problem. When the time comes, we will drive them away, just like a shepherd drives his flock, and drive them to the front of all the teams. They will give their lives for the great Dark Lord, but I guess those children and those cowardly parents don't have the courage to kill. But I have to admire your wisdom. With this group of stupid idiots, we can attack Hogwarts more easily." In the face of Barty Crouch Jr.'s compliment, Voldemort just waved his hand, and then continued to explain. "The greatest significance of these wizards in our hands is not to attract the useless firepower for us. It's to prevent us from even being able to enter the door of Hogwarts. If the other party uses some powerful defensive spells, you will push them all in front of everyone. Use their lives to threaten each other, and ask the other party to lift the curse. If the other party does not follow our request, I think you should know how to do it. Okay, gentlemen, let's go and prepare immediately. The history of the British wizarding world will be completely changed tonight." Chapter 185 Professor McGonagall and -039, S. The long night will finally usher in the dawn. With a long bell from the tower, this originally very ordinary Thursday, amidst the long wait and people's anxiety, finally ushered in a new day. In Paris, France, thousands of miles away from England, an international conference of wizards and wizards, nominally held for the British Ministry of Magic, has entered the final stage of preparation, and will be officially held after dawn. And in Hogwarts Castle, which has a history of thousands of years, a battle moment that made everyone extremely nervous was ushered in. We should cast powerful defensive magic immediately, and trust Professor Flitwick and my abilities, if Mr. Dumbledore is sure that he can hold back Voldemort. Just relying on those rabble, they cannot easily enter Hogwarts." Professor McGonagall looked at the group of heavily armed students standing on the Hogwarts square in front of him, and Hagrid's combat team, and shouted loudly. She obviously doesn't want her students to be involved in these things. First, she is afraid that the safety of the students will not be guaranteed. Second, she does not want the students to be exposed to these things too early. It shouldn't be the darkness that their age group needs to be exposed to. But it is very obvious that Professor McGonagall's proposal has not been approved by anyone, and those in Slytherin naturally need not say more. Under the leadership of Augustus, they have ushered in a new historical outlet, and this time they seem to have chosen the right team. After finally becoming the leader of the 4 colleges, and at the same time recovering some of Slytherin's honor, they of course need to cut off the stains of Slytherin before. They were eager to jump into the battle right away. They could show their future status in front of the leaders in advance, and they could also maintain Slytherin's honor. It could be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. The students of Gryffindor and Ravenclaw are also full of strong desire to fight. Such a group of selfish people appeared among their classmates, which caused great damage to the reputation of the 2 colleges. They also want to wash away this stain through this battle, but the most important thing, that is inconvenient to say, is that they absolutely do not allow those guys in Slytherin to be so arrogant. Only the Hufflepuff students had been standing there listening to Professor McGonagall's speech, and judging from the chains of bullets crossed on each of them, they didn't seem to intend to take a defensive stance. Professor McGonagall, of course I know what you are worried about, but have you ever thought about the reason why my brother has such an arrangement? What's the reason? Don't forget that they still have many hostages in their hands, although their situation is their own fault. But what we can't deny is that they didn't do anything too harmful, and we still need to try our best to preserve their lives. If we had cast strong defensive magic and kept each other out of the school, what would those guys have done? I think they would have pushed those innocent people to the front line, then execute them one by one at the gate of Hogwarts in front of us. This situation is an insult to Hogwarts, and at the same time, it will make us fall into a huge public opinion, and it will make us bear the infamy that we shouldn't bear. Looking at Professor McGonagall, who was already a little excited, Julius had no choice but to explain carefully. It is true that, as Professor McGonagall said, a powerful defensive spell can indeed protect the safety of Hogwarts before Voldemort arrives. But if this is the case, everyone who dies at the gate of Hogwarts will be recorded on Hogwarts. I and Augustus have made the situation so big, and the 2 have brought the revolution into a heated and deep water area. Just when this is about to succeed, it is also the time when the ship is most likely to capsize. I don't know how many potential people want to see some mistakes in the process, so that they can attack this movement infinitely. The meeting held in Paris will definitely not be as calm as it appears on the surface. It is impossible for a Voldemort to cause such a big turmoil. After all, what is justice and evil? Whether wizards are supremacy or tradition is just a reshuffling and redistribution of power. All struggles with lofty slogans are fake, and only power struggles are real. When Professor McGonagall and Julius were in a stalemate, Mr. Weasley slowly pushed through the crowd and walked over. Standing beside him was the new Professor Lupin. The other party was also a werewolf before, but he was cured by Augustus, and the price he paid was given by his good brother Sirius Black. It was the legacy of the Black family that had been swallowed up by the Ministry of Magic. In order to prevent the victim, Sirius, from acting too aggressively, Augustus secretly reached a deal with the other party. The 2 gentlemen walked slowly to Professor McGonagall, looked at Professor McGonagall and said respectfully, "Professor McGonagall, as a student who once studied here, I certainly have deep feelings for this castle. As for your love for this castle, I believe that everyone present will not have any doubts. You don't want such a bloody battle to happen in this sacred place of the school. We understand your concern, but what we have to emphasize to you is that the current magical world has been changed. The change does not come from Voldemort, who is yet to come, but from all of us, and Mr. Augustus Dumbledore, who leads us all forward. Every drastic social change will inevitably lead to serious confrontation and sacrifice, just like every new life that comes into this world requires the mother's painful childbirth in exchange for the birth of a new life. So on behalf of myself and everyone in the Weasley family, as well as all the parents of the students I know and authorize to me, I hope you can temporarily lend your beloved castle. After this battle, I believe that the blood that has flowed for a long time, and the rift that has existed for hundreds of years, that cannot be healed, wizards and muggles, will usher in a new future after tonight." The unusual generosity of Mr. Weasley's words caused everyone present to applaud, and at the same time, Mrs. Weasley couldn't help but look at her husband with admiration. That Professor McGonagall who had been standing there had tears in his eyes long ago. He was not like his old buddy Dumbledore, who chose his own life at the last moment of his life. For her, this castle is everything to her. All her memories and all her life are carried and recorded by this castle. Of course she knew that the battle tonight was unavoidable, but she, who had always been known for her reason, wanted to be willful at this critical moment. She is also very old at this age, and she is afraid of losing anyone, the lovely children in front of her, and the students she has taught. She cannot accept the loss of anyone. Looking at the tears in Professor McGonagall's eyes, Julius scratched his head. He was not as comforting as Augustus, and he was a little at a loss in the face of Professor McGonagall's tears. I had no choice but to take out an envelope that Augustus had left for him before he left, opened the envelope, and looked at it, then walked to Professor McGonagall in doubt, and whispered in the other's ear, "Oh, by the way, Professor, according to the letter left by Principal Dumbledore before he left, you can use the magic spell that you have been looking forward to for a long time in this battle." Chapter 186 Pre-War Task Assignment. This thoughtless sentence made everyone present feel a little confused. Only Professor McGonagall, who had just been in grief, had cat excitement in his eyes when he heard this sentence. Professor McGonagall wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes gracefully, then turned to look at everyone present, and announced loudly, 14 years ago, due to the negligence of our educators, monsters like Voldemort were created, which led to irreversible tragedies. Today, the instigator of these tragedies, the fool who thought he could rule everything, once again led his lackeys and a group of innocent people to our castle. My dear students, show them the courage of Hogwarts and let them know that we are now united and will never allow darkness to invade our cherished school again. Following Professor McGonagall's announcement, the students who had been standing on the square immediately cheered loudly. Hagrid and his centaur allies were also cheering together. The students held up all kinds of weapons in their hands and kept shouting loudly. However, this scene also looks a bit weird. A battle between a group of wizards. Everyone is holding guns made by muggles. After cheering, Julius immediately began to assign combat tasks to everyone present, after obtaining the permission of Professor McGonagall. Ravenclaw College and Slytherin College have more experience in accurate shooting during previous games. You immediately head to the castle and the various commanding heights in front of it. First observe the enemy's situation, and at the same time, pay attention to hiding yourself. If any unexpected situation occurs, immediately activate the teleportation circle hanging in the school badge on your chest. The anchor point of the teleportation circle is in the Hogwarts Great Hall. I don't want to see any accidents among students during this battle. You know the rules of engagement. For those who still have the possibility of reforming, use trigger bullets, but try to shoot as accurately as possible. These bullets are very expensive. In addition to being rich in aesthetics, they also have a miniature alchemy teleportation module, which can make the hit person appear in this state of suspended animation, and teleport the opponent's corpse to the dungeon of Hogwarts after a few minutes among them. Now you go first, and communicate through special channels immediately, if there is any situation. The Slytherin and Ravenclaw students who got their own missions held the AWP sniper rifles in their hands, and put on professional auspicious clothes. A group of two used apparition magic, and they disappeared from the square of Hogwarts in an instant, hiding in the vast darkness of the night. After all the students of Slytherin House and Ravenclaw House dispersed, Julius turned to look at the people of Gryffindor House and Hufflepuff House. Seeing the fighting spirit on Gryffindor College's face, he reminded with some concern. After the battle begins, you are absolutely not allowed to conduct a mindless and meaningless charge, like you did in the previous game. The other party is not here to play games. Most of them are dark wizards with innocent blood on their hands. The main purpose of our battle is to show the courage of Hogwarts as much as possible, and the other is to protect the safety of everyone present. Don't forget that your parents are with you, and there are so many classmates and teachers who love you. Don't let them feel sad. After hearing these words, Professor McGonagall and the parents of the students nodded repeatedly, and it turned out that the eyes of many Gryffindor students were a little gloomy. Many of them haven't slept well in the past 2 nights, and they will secretly gather at lunch and dinner to discuss the tactical plan for tonight's battle. Many people think that, in order to show Gryffindor's courage, when the battle is at its most intense, they must be the first to jump out of the trenches and face to decide the outcome, just like in previous battle games. and Julius's words were like a basin of cold water falling from the sky, pouring chills on their simple and reckless heroic dreams. It also made many people start to remember again that what they are going to do now is not a game, but a war that may really kill people. After beating some reckless people in Gryffindor, Julius began to assign the next combat mission. I think the group of wizards detained by them will most likely become human shields and be driven to the front of the team by those people. So our combat strategy must highlight a fast word, because those wizards don't understand the weapons we use. They are instinctively scared when they see people around them falling one by one, and it's likely to cause them to run away. And the large group of black wizards behind them, seeing these people fleeing, will definitely execute them without hesitation, so that these people can save their lives. We must use the fastest speed to clear all these human shields, so everyone must use automatic firearms. Use the fastest speed to knock down all those human shields to the ground. At the same time, the snipers who are arranged will also pay attention to preventing some black wizards from executing these human shields in advance. But after these human shields are cleaned up, everyone, it's time to avenge your injustice and revenge. I believe that, if you are born in the British wizarding world, you will have heard of some of your relatives or friends of the elders in the family, who were mercilessly killed by Voldemort. Although I don't agree with the use of violence only, but if you want revenge, I will not stop you. After speaking, Julius looked up at the bewildered students and the silent parents behind the students. After all the combat missions were arranged, Julius also looked up at the moon in the sky, so he was in the walkie-talkie on his body very quickly. Then came the shouts of several Slytherin students. I saw Voldemort and the others. Just as we had guessed before, the group of wizards were forcibly driven to the front of the team like a flock of sheep. Oh my god, there are quite a few of them. There are many dark wizards that I have never heard of. Look at the clothes they wear and their faces. Merlin's pants. There are such ugly people in the world. There are still a lot of weird creatures. There are giants and some other things. Anyway, they are coming soon. I hope you can get ready. Over. After listening to the other party's report, Julius also responded briefly. Don't be the first to fire. Let them go. Your main purpose is to ensure that they will not execute those poor guys early and block their way when they retreat. I wish you good luck, and I hope that I can reap my honor today. Over. After responding, Julius looked at the excited Professor McGonagall beside him, turned around to look at everyone again, and said loudly, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the actors are already in place, the curtain is rising, and our performance will officially begin." Chapter 187 The Peaceful Castle. Under the cover of the dark night, a mighty group of people were approaching the 1,000-year-old castle. Their combination seemed very strange. There was a black wizard in a black robe who refused to show his true face. There are ugly and tall giants and mountain monsters. They are either holding strange metal weapons, or holding huge stone tools or wooden sticks. They looked at each other with a naive look, and there seemed to be some hatred in their eyes. If it weren't for the black wizard next to them to discipline them, maybe they would have killed themselves before they even got to Hogwarts. Among all humanoid groups, Fenrir and his werewolf subordinates have the largest number. This group of notorious werewolves has been wandering around the entire European continent and the United Kingdom. They hated their identity as werewolves, and hated wizards' discrimination against werewolves even more, so they were often retaliated by wizards, and began to frantically attack those who discriminated against them. Most of the adults were killed, and the children were bitten, and let them go, so that the other party suffered from pain and discrimination in the identity of a werewolf. These people quietly approached the main gate of Hogwarts Castle from the Forbidden Forest next to the Black Lake, and looked at the majestic castle in front of them. Everyone present showed excitement. However, among the crowd, there were still many people who looked at the familiar castle in front of them and couldn't help but feel a little nervous. After all, Dumbledore was the principal of this school. The greatest wizard of this century is not called for nothing, and the other party is not as kind as his face. The title of White Devil is what these dark wizards will use when they call Dumbledore. All of them have heard more or less legends about Dumbledore from their predecessors or teachers. When the other party quelled the first wizard war, the methods they used were not at all like the White Wizard. Now, without the blessing of the master, are the group of people really sure that they can take down the majestic castle in front of them? The vanguard troops in front have all returned, and nothing unusual has been found. At the same time, the entire castle does not have any powerful defensive spells. As long as we walk across the bridge in front of us, we can directly enter Hogwarts Castle from the main entrance. After reading the equipment, it is already at your fingertips. A group of teachers, plus a group of wastes who have been scared for a long time. Not to mention those young students. What did they do? Without Dumbledore's blessing, this castle is like an unguarded golden egg. We can steal it anytime and anywhere. After seeing that all the subordinates he sent out to explore the way came back safely, the werewolf sir seemed a little flustered. He spoke loudly directly to Bella, implying that the current Hogwarts is already at your fingertips. There is no need to formulate so-called tactics, just push it over. Bella, who heard Fenrir's report, also seemed very happy at the moment. She had hated this place for a long time, and she would definitely get anything Lord Voldemort wanted. So Bella just wanted to give an order to let everyone charge directly to the other side of the bridge and quickly take over the entire castle. But at this moment, Karkaroff, who had one hand cut off, slowly walked out of the crowd as one of the few people who was a little more skilled. He looked at the brightly lit castle in front of him, thought for a moment, grabbed Bella who was about to give an order, took her left hand, and advised, "What we are facing is not this castle. What we are really facing is Augustus Dumbledore. The other party will let us take down his headquarters so easily. There must be a huge trap inside. We should proceed with caution." Us. I think you are just scared. Ever since the old man chopped off your palm, your courage has also been picked off with a sharp sword along with that palm. Before he could finish his persuasion, Fenrir interrupted the other party directly. He looked at Karkaroff's severed hand mockingly and dismissed the other party's persuasion. And Karkaroff, who was ridiculed by this werewolf, could only feel very helpless and at the same time felt very wronged. Obviously in the middle of the assassination, only I took real actions to protect Voldemort from harm. Although the result was not achieved, my behavior is undoubtedly loyal and should be commended. But not only did he not praise himself, he didn't even help restore his own palm, completely ignoring his efforts, and in this battle, he didn't get any rights at all. Thinking of this, Karkaroff didn't say anything, but quietly retreated behind everyone. By the way, that's what you should do. A coward like you should stay away. Don't worry, I won't tell the master. After this battle is over, I will ask the master to give you some honor, for the sake of watching you for so many years. Seeing Karkaroff retreating by himself, Fenrir was very excited. He waved his hand back slightly, while mocking exaggeratedly. Bella, who was not dissuaded by anyone, also felt that it was time to show her wisdom. She announced loudly, "Everyone is ready to charge, but let the group of guys who like to sit on the wall walk at the front of the team, and they are not allowed to take a step back. If you dare to retreat privately, you will be killed on the spot." So under the coercion of the Dark Wizard, a group of former high-ranking officials of the Ministry of Magic, wizards in the British wizarding world who had not had time to escape, and muggles implicated in wizards in their own families, driven like a flock of sheep, they walked out of this forest that they thought could protect them, and all their steps seemed a little uneasy. They were not allocated too many weapons, and almost every 3 people had an arc rifle in their hands. Voldemort said that when the comrade in arms next to him fell down, he had to take up the guns in the other party's hands with the courage to sacrifice for him and continue to rush forward. Driven by the Black Wizard behind them, this group of people walked across the wooden bridge and came to the wide square in front of the castle. The crowd standing in the square couldn't help but start to look at each other. Many people were thankful that they survived, and those dark wizards were also wondering, did the other party really abandon this castle? Bang bang bang. Then, when everyone was extremely puzzled, flames of various colors flickered in every corner of the castle, accompanied by more violent and continuous gunshots. Under the guidance of the connected tracer bullets, the light curtain composed of bullets cut the black night sky into countless parts. Those innocent people who were driven away by the Black Wizard, under the attack of these numerous firepower points, all of them were shot 7 or 8 times. Huge blood mist exploded from their bodies, and in less than 30 seconds, the group of hostages who were originally used to attract firepower were all lying on the square. Chapter 188 A Different Wizarding War. After this burst of violent gunshots, looking at the pile of corpses lying at his feet, the Black Wizard was completely surrounded. Before he could figure out the situation, some people immediately began to touch their bodies and hands and feet, wanting to see if they were still intact or alive, and let more people directly look at the group of people on the ground. Looking at the huge blood stain on the opponent's chest, many people couldn't help scratching their heads. In such a short period of time, so many people were killed so efficiently. What is the teaching content of this school? You must know that many of them graduated from this school. It seems that they did not teach this when they were in school. Bella and Fenrir, who came behind, hurriedly stroked the pulses of those lying on the ground. Then Fenrir stood up, turned to look at the bewildered crowd, and said loudly with disdain, "It's okay, these people were just stunned by the powerful narcotic potion. I said that these children dare not kill people. It's just a group of children who haven't grown up, plus a group of parents who are not as good as their own children. We only need to cast a simple protective spell on ourselves. Their gadgets are of no use to us." This explanation made the group of dark wizards in the circle react, and they all started to save face for themselves, and many people also started to speak out, to mock the students of Hogwarts. While casting defensive spells on themselves, some people made various obscene mocking gestures towards the castle in the night. "Professor Lupin, I believe that person is the notorious werewolf in the legend. I believe you still have some grievances against him. It just so happens that you should fire the first shot in this formal battle." At the same time, on the top floor of the clock tower in front of Hogwarts Castle, Julius was looking at the group of people below with his night vision binoculars. "Talk to Professor Lupin, who shoots in a prone position and uses an anti-material Barrett sniper rifle." And in Professor Lupin's 8x night vision sniper scope, the crusher representing death had already locked onto the head of the Fenrir werewolf. The peaceful battlefield was quiet for about 5 minutes. At this time, this group of arrogant and domineering guys had already started and finally made all preparations, preparing to launch another charge to take Hogwarts down in one fell swoop. But at this moment, someone finally discovered that the corpses that had been lying in disorder on the square had disappeared long ago without a trace. The first person to discover this phenomenon was a werewolf. Just as he wanted his boss to report the situation, he heard a loud noise next to his ear. Boom. The sound was like thunder exploding in the summer sky. Simultaneously with these sounds, a bright bullet smashed Fenrir's head at several times the speed of sound. The opponent's head and half of his upper body exploded instantly like a watermelon blasted by firecrackers. All kinds of offal mixed with blood splashed all over the faces of the people around, touching the red and white still hot liquid on his own face and the half of the other party's body. It was worthy of falling down. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Didn't they mean that it was just an anesthetic? Could an anesthetic be able to beat a person to half of their body? From the current point of view, the elder brother who died should not seem to be asleep. Although the posture of the other party lying on the ground is very peaceful, his body is not complete at all. Bang bang bang. However, they didn't have much time to think. A series of continuous gunshots began to ring out from all directions, and some people with quick reactions used apparition to avoid bullets, and some people with slower reaction speed were hit by several guns fired at the same time. It was the werewolf who wanted to report just now, but he reacted quickly. He quickly apparated and hid in the corner of the corridor next to the square. Relying on the solid stone pillars in the corridor, he looked at his lost partners who fled in embarrassment. The death conditions of these people were extremely miserable. The weapons used by the other party were very brutal, and almost none of the people who were hit were physically intact. It is better that they were hit directly on the body or head, and they passed away in an instant without feeling any pain. But some people were more unlucky. They finally reacted and started to run away, but they were accidentally shot in the palm of their hands. The entire palm exploded in an instant and flew away, because the time was too short to feel the pain, but the huge blood loss slowed him down. So more bullets flew towards him, but hit the other palm impartially, and the other hand didn't feel the pain until this time. Just when he was about to yell, he finally opened his mouth wide and greeted his final destination. A bullet directly smashed his head. Those who survived all used magic to hide on the edge of the walls. Some people had more flexible minds and directly used magic spells to blow up several walls. Then let those who have not had time to escape hide behind the falling rubble. At this time, Bella, who was supervising the battle, finally realized that the situation was wrong and quickly asked people to drive away the thick-skinned giant and mountain monster, hoping that they could resist the enemy's firepower. But when these people finally walked out of the woods and started to drive away the monsters, the Forbidden Forest was extremely quiet. There were a few more muffled gunshots, and those dark wizards with special skills and their wands were knocked down one by one, and those who wanted to escape were also shot in the back. And the marksmanship of these designs should be very accurate. The black wizard who was hit would have wounds either on the head or on the back. The unguarded monsters broke free immediately, and they didn't go out towards Hogwarts because of the constantly flashing tracer bullets and the continuous loud gunshots. They were so frightened that their livers and gallbladders were torn apart. They turned around and ran back one after another, causing some black wizards who had no other preparations to support their partners and were directly trampled into meatloaf by giants and mountain trolls. Moreover, these monsters are highly resistant to magic. Ordinary magic is just a tickle for them. These dark wizards usually use drugs and some special magic to control them. However, because of the collective death of the tamers, these monsters not only did not become their own help, but caused a lot of trouble. Seeing this scene, Bella felt that her head was about to go crazy. She looked at the crowd who couldn't lift their heads under the pressure of the fire, as well as the giants and mountain monsters who kept trampling on her own people. For a while, there was no other way. Until now, Karkaroff, who had been watching the show, sighed and said slowly, "Let's set a fire and set the Forbidden Forest on fire, so as to drive away all the little bastards in the Forbidden Forest. We can also drive away giants and mountain monsters, and now we have only this way." Upon hearing this suggestion, Miss Bella, who had no awareness of environmental protection, turned around and took out her wand, shouting loudly at the Forbidden Forest behind her. Incendio is on fire. Chapter 189 Tactical Squad. As Bella yelled these incantations, several small flames shot out from her crooked wand and landed on the trees and fallen leaves in the Forbidden Forest. Since it has not rained recently, the temperature has picked up a lot as summer approaches. The grass that has accumulated many fallen leaves and branches has been ignited a lot by these small flames. And Karkaroff, who came up with this idea, stood beside those flames, using his only left hand, took out his magic wand, pointed at those small flames, and whispered softly, "The wind is sweeping." A small tornado started to form from the place where the other party cast the spell, and then gradually grew stronger, with leaves and dead branches constantly being swept up in midair by the tornado, and the ignited firewood was also mixed in it. Sufficient air mixed with sufficient fuel, plus those sporadic flames as detonation materials, the small tornado gradually became a terrifying flame storm. It began to wreak havoc in the Forbidden Forest, and those towering trees, that shouldn't be easily ignited, were also ignited by this terrifying flame storm. Then, like a burning candle, the flame soaring into the sky turned the night into red. This method really worked. Due to the uncontrollable flame storm, he began to run freely in the Forbidden Forest. Those Slytherin and Ravenclaw students who were hiding on the trees to cover themselves had to retreat at full speed. The air began to become hot and choking due to the burning of the fire, looking at the surrounding scene like a flame hell. The people who had already started to retreat into the depths of the Forbidden Forest stopped and looked at Draco and Harry, who were aside. After all, before Augustus left, Draco had been appointed as the interim president of the Saints Association. When facing such an important choice, of course, the other party needed to show the qualities that a leader should possess. Draco looked at the flame storm that had formed and could not be extinguished with ordinary magic, and there were several big trees that had begun to completely burn. The fire is no longer under their control, and they must use more powerful assistance. But now that so many people are acting at the same time, it will undoubtedly slow down everyone's pace. So Draco looked at everyone present and began to assign tasks. He pointed to a relatively strong and handsome boy in Slytherin house and said loudly to him, "Also Robert, succeed me as the captain of the Slytherin house battle team." Most of you rushed to the school immediately. Go to support the battle at the school. Many of them blew up the walls of the square and blocked many attacks with stones. You go around from the side and kill those people one by one. Remember to change the bullets. There is no one worth saving now. The boy who got the task did not express any objection and directly led all the Slytherin students, except Harry and Draco, and began to detour to the side of the square along the planned road. After assigning tasks to the students of Slytherin House, Draco looked at the students of Ravenclaw House again, and he said to the leading senior among them, "This fire will drive those giants and mountain monsters. They may have a very strong defense against those small bullets. So you go around to the left side of the square, use the coins of the saints in your hands, and look for the heavy firepower that has been hidden there for a long time. Use those things to kill the other party. Today we must ensure that they will never return. This is a task assigned by Mr. Augustus, and you must leave me with 3 people, Amy, Ada, and Miss Bonnie. The 3 ladies are the highest alchemists in Ravenclaw College. I need you to go to the depths of the Forbidden Forest with me and Miss Hall to activate the protective shield left by Augustus before, so as to prevent the entire Forbidden Forest from being burned to ashes by the other party." The Ravenclaw College, which received the order, also showed a very strong execution ability. Except for the 3 ladies, the others, under the leadership of their seniors, also followed some designed routes and quickly maneuvered around doubt. Draco, Harry and the others walked deeper into the Forbidden Forest and quickly disappeared into the dark night. But Bella, who succeeded in attacking with fire, watched those giants and mountain monsters walking towards Hogwarts Castle driven by the flames. Of course, they didn't choose the wooden bridge as the direction of attack, but changed to a stone bridge on the other side and started attacking from another direction. These mountain monsters, which are very resistant to magic, are very rough and thick, and small caliber rifles can't effectively kill them at all. And Hagrid, who has heavy firepower, fired a few shots with the Fox 40 caliber anti-aircraft gun, and because his little baby's house was on fire, he was angry and went to the Forbidden Forest to put out the fire with his centaur allies. This frontal fire support point was lost all of a sudden, making those mountain monsters and giants start to move forward steadily. In the beginning, the sniper rifles and heavy machine guns also caused a lot of damage to each other. The Hufflepuff students used the special ammunition given to them by Julius. The skins of those giants and mountain monsters were directly torn off. After the first round of firefights, 4 mountain monsters fell to the center of the stone bridge due to multiple bullets. But what is unexpected is that this group of seemingly silly monsters also have a good IQ. They used a very simple and crude method to pile up the corpses of their dead companions, and then formed a wall made of flesh and blood. The other survivors hid behind this kind of wall and slowly pushed him forward. And they seemed to have found some people who could shoot accurately, and they used the weapons in their hands to carefully cover their small heads and eyes. Damn fork, didn't you say that this creature has no mind? How could they think of this way? We don't have a good design angle. The bullets can't penetrate the thick branches or the strange objects made of steel. They are less than 100 meters away from our gate. Professor Lupin, standing on the bell tower of Hogwarts Castle, was looking around with a telescope. Standing behind him was Julius, who was the commander of this battle. While listening to Professor Lupin's report, he also took a pair of binoculars and began to observe the movement of the Forbidden Forest in the distance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, the official start of the performance. Is there any other way for us? If not, we should take measures immediately. If this continues, Hogwarts will be over. Did you hear me talking? Seeing the group of twisted monsters advancing steadily, Professor Lupin was extremely nervous. He knew what it was, and as a professor of defense against the dark arts, he couldn't be more clear. He understood better that if those things knocked open the gate, then behind the gate, those students who did not participate in the battle, and the parents of the students who were unwilling to join the battle. Ordinary people who are powerless will be torn to shreds or even eaten by these monsters one by one. However, this dangerous situation didn't seem to attract the attention of the young man behind him. The other party had been observing the distance with the telescope, and he didn't care about the threat that was close at hand. Relax, Professor. Hogwarts cannot be finished. Even if all of you did not fight today, it will not be finished because of this. This is just a game. The reason why I say this is a great battle is to improve the enthusiasm of those Gryffindors, and at the same time, warn them not to be stupid. It's just a mass performance. A real battle is never like this. A real battle is a simple one-on-one. The result of a duel with high-end combat power is enough to change the entire battle situation. Seeing that the professor beside him was already a little crazy, Julius quickly comforted him. He wasn't looking for trouble there, nor was he in the few logs in the Forbidden Forest. What everyone didn't know was that in today's battle, apart from the two sides fighting, in fact, there are still a group of people, but the other party does not participate in the battle, and has been watching the battle from a distance. After confirming that all the situations did not exceed the plan, Julius put away the exquisite pair of monoculars, and then slowly sat down in his seat. At the highest point of Hogwarts Castle, Julius managed to get a set of exquisite tables and chairs here. Only in this way can he enjoy this good performance while drinking honey tea comfortably. Sitting down and yawning, Julius, who was about to make another pot of honey tea for himself, suddenly found Professor Lupin standing there in a daze, staring at him as if he had a lot of resentment. Being stared at like this is of course not in the mood to make tea again, so Julius had no choice but to stand up, quietly walked to Professor Lupin's side, looked at the vicissitudes of the other side, and explained patiently. They can't pass the last 50 meters. I believe that the group of students in the Forbidden Forest has already started to act. The fire they set just cut off their only way of life. The only thing we have to do now is to wait for Draco to completely cut off the other party's way of life, and wait for the students who have come back to complete the final harvest. While this is not a long wait, how about we make a good cup of honey tea and listen to the music? As he said that, Julius actually took out a beautiful violin. The violin was made of black walnut, which was completely different from the mahogany color of ordinary violins. The whole violin is mainly black, and around the violin, there are gold lines drawn with a brush. The black and gold color scheme makes the whole violin look extremely elegant. If you feel nervous, Professor, it's better for you to make tea. I'll play some music. You can sit in your seat and relax. Today you will get revenge, so enjoy the wonderful music. And then with this magnificent show, we too prepare for a new era. As he said that, Julius began to play on his own, and Professor Lupin, who wanted to stop and clarify the crisis situation again, was directly pressed to the seat by an invisible force. With Julius gently pulling, the unique tone of the violin began to appear on the Hogwarts Tower in the night. One of the masterpieces of classical music, Violin Concerto in D major, began to flow out of the soundbox of the violin, and it was a slow prelude at the beginning. The melodious timbre, like the moonlight cast from the sky, is warm and peaceful, but also very gripping, which attracts everyone's attention. Some students from other colleges stopped shooting when they heard this unique note. And those dark wizards who were hiding behind the stones in the square also emerged from the stone bunkers, because of the disappearance of the gunfire that suppressed them, and the unique sound attracted them. He began to look for the source of the sound everywhere, and finally turned his suspicious gaze to a high place. But the slow prelude didn't last long. After all, the author of this symphony was Beethoven, who once said, "I choked fate's throat." The ups and downs of the sound began to come out from the violin, even though the timbre of the violin did not allow it, but its player still seemed to want to play as vigorously and magnificently as possible. The arrival of this climax made the other students present feel their blood surging, and at the same time they felt it was extremely fun. Strong contrast and contrast, elegant classical music combined with modern weapons and fierce battles. Is there anything more romantic and exciting than this? The students began to pour out firepower even more frantically, and everyone started to act, using every gunshot they knocked to respond to the notes from the tower. The situation of the dark wizards who had just improved was completely unlucky at this moment, and they were suddenly attacked by more violent firepower than before. The rain of bullets poured down on them so much that they didn't dare to lift their heads. This sudden attack made several dark wizards who had never appreciated classical music and were attracted by music. The rainstorm pear blossoms formed by the bullets were blasted into a pile of minced meat. At the same time, the monsters and giants were also attacked, and the wall of flesh made of corpses began to be a little bit unable to withstand the crazy shooting. And in just a few minutes, several commanders in charge of this aspect of the battle also thought of a way to deal with this situation. They concentrated all their firepower, especially the 6M2 Browning heavy machine guns, concentrated them all, and then concentrated all their firepower on one place, trying to use a bullet to directly penetrate the wall. Julius, who was on the tower, fell into the ecstasy of playing, as if he was not on the battlefield, where the bullets were flying. But it is really in the music hall of a medieval castle. The sound of light and heavy guns firing continuously is the best symphony. The pistol and the automatic rifle are the cornet and the clarinet, and the heavy machine gun is the little drummer. It's still a little short, and the soul of the symphony is still missing. The piano and cello should be on stage. While enjoying the music, Julius muttered to himself silently while playing. Boom. 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 And the moment he said this, several loud explosions reached his ears. Just now, several mortar shells drew several beautiful arcs and fell directly on those who were hiding the Black Wizard students in the bunker. The fragments and shockwaves produced by the explosion directly blasted those people into the air and completely dispelled their plans to fight back. Chapter 191, the final chapter of the battle. What the hell are we doing here? Is that how they threw us here? It's just a school. TMD is what the students can do. We are suffering from an irresistible massacre. What is the explosive that fell from the sky, and the thing that was shooting desperately in front of us? We can't even lift our heads now. How are we going to attack here? The arrival of the mortars completely shook the confidence of the Black Wizards present, and they began to show a state of mental breakdown, yelling one by one. Having completely lost their confidence in attacking Hogwarts, many of them could only hide under narrow bunkers, enduring constant machine gun fire and mortar shells falling from the sky. Obviously, the mortar group on the side didn't enjoy themselves after the first round of salvo. They suppressed the Black Wizard on the side of the wooden bridge square. At the same time, I started to help the students on the side of the stone bridge square to reduce the pressure. The students concentrated their firepower and concentrated their machine guns together, and the tactic of shooting one place at the same time was almost successful. But those mountain monsters and giants were even smarter than the Black Wizards at the beginning. They filled all the broken stones they could pick up along the way into the bodies of their dead companions. A very strange wall was formed by combining stones and flesh and blood, and after feeling the pressure from the rear, the attack speed of this group of monsters also suddenly accelerated. This forced those students with heavy firepower to give up suppressing the Black Wizards on the side of Buccio Square, and instead put all their firepower in the direction of the stone bridge. And because the battle has been going on for a while, some students are not good at continuous shooting, and the shooting speed is too fast to consume their ammunition. Before the new ammunition was replenished, the frontal firepower received by the Black Wizards in the wooden bridge square was greatly weakened. At the same time, due to the transfer of the firepower of the mortar group, the shelling from the sky gradually disappeared, so many people tried to use some defensive magic, using the levitation spell to prop up the stone walls. Supporting the stone wall and the defensive spell, carefully began to prepare for evacuation. As for the fire in the Forbidden Forest, this is not a big problem for them. They just need to escape the influence range of the Hogwarts anti-apparition formation. They can use magic to escape immediately. They no longer have any illusions, and many people can guarantee in their hearts the blow they have suffered now. Even if Voldemort came by himself, it was just a few more bullets. This place is not a school at all. They simply came to the location of the Muggle army. Relying on mutual cover and rare teamwork, these Black Wizards retreated in an orderly manner. Most of the people have already started to retreat to the wooden bridge one after another, but when they are less than 200 meters away, they can leave the wooden bridge and drill into the woods to prepare to escape. Bang, bang, bang. Several familiar and unfamiliar gunshots came from the Forbidden Forest. Several black wizards were shot behind them and fell directly on the wooden bridge. They were only a few steps away from the gate of freedom. They were looking forward to distance. Where are these people hiding? Why our spells don't work at all? And why our iron armor spells are as brittle as a piece of paper? And where did these people shoot? Why did we come here? I want to strangle Bella and her henchmen with my own hands. TMD is simply asking us to come here to die. A damned group of guys. They themselves hide far away. These cold shots completely wiped out the illusion that the other party was still trying to escape. They had no choice but to huddle together and use the levitation spell to pull the stone wall that was finally pulled over, all put together to form a 360-degree stone fortress, while everyone else huddled together under the shelter of the stone fortress like a turtle. However, even so, the relentless guns fired continuously from the Forbidden Forest were still trying to shoot in through the cracks in the stone slabs to kill them. Some people could clearly feel that every shot from the opponent was not wasted. All of them were calibrating the trajectory, and the impact point of the bullet was getting closer and closer to the gap between the slate. The bullets that had been fired into the gap began to play the role of digging holes, one after another, and the impact points of several bullets gathered in one place. Cracks have already begun to appear inside the stone slab. Looking at the ever-extending cracks, there are other bullet points that are gradually approaching the cracks. Some people can't hold back anymore, and now they have nowhere to go to heaven or earth. And if they stay here like this, sooner or later they will all be killed by others. This group of people are not children who dare not kill. Look at the corpses lying under their feet. Look at the horrific bullet holes on each other's bodies, and the blood that keeps flowing out of the wounds. All the facts in front of them have told them that now they are a group of lambs waiting to be slaughtered, prey surrounded by countless hunters, and the only options left for them are death or surrender. They've been completely trapped. Do you want to send some people over to ask them if they are willing to surrender? If they can be captured alive? In the subsequent political activities, we will undoubtedly have a very large advantage. Professor Lupin, who was on top of the Hogwarts clock tower, saw the group of black wizards huddled together on the wooden bridge with binoculars, and at the same time, looked at the stone bridge, who were blown to pieces by the mortars. The mountain monsters and giants have already begun to flee. However, their escape didn't seem to have any effect. They were either swept to the ground by the heavy machine gun behind them, or blown to pieces by a stray bullet that flew over. However, Professor Lupin's words did not seem to have entered Julius' ears, and the other party was still playing there selflessly. The trickle sound drawn from the violin, accompanied by the noisy explosions and loud noises around, seemed to be playing a symphony of a battlefield. The teenagers in the castle under the moonlight are so touching and elegant, as if these students are not engaged in cruel killings. It was a gorgeous waltz danced on the dance floor. As the tone of the concerto gradually reached a climax, the frequency of attacks by the students became higher and higher. Just like the author of this piece of music, he is gifted and has suffered misfortune, but he can still push classical music to a climax. After the last note came out of the violin, the melodious sound of the violin disappeared in the castle, and the sound of guns and explosions also disappeared at the same time. Julius stood there silently with his eyes closed, then held the violin in one hand and the bow in the other, and bowed gracefully with his hands crossed to the non-existent audience. And as he bowed, a golden curtain of light soaring to the sky lit up from all around the Forbidden Forest. The light curtain completely separates this ancient castle with a long history from the outside world. Those Death Eaters and monsters who have finally escaped to the Forbidden Forest and are about to leave. It was also blocked by this light curtain, and the appearance of this light curtain marked the end of this battle. Now you can send someone to talk to them. If you just inform them that they will be caught without a fight, they will have nowhere to escape. If you don't want to surrender, I'm willing to play another song for them, and it's considered as my loyal hymn for their death. The boy under the moonlight turned his back to Professor Lupin and said slowly and flatly, Chapter 192 Persistent Inquiry. Just as the battle at Hogwarts Castle entered, Augustus and Professor Snape also came to the Riddle family cemetery. The family's cemetery is located behind a luxurious manor. It is a very typical Catholic cemetery. The tombstones of each family member are painted with crosses and some symbols of the Holy Spirit. However, this family cemetery seems to have undergone some modifications. There is a statue in the center of the cemetery, which is a god of death with a sickle in his hand and a hat on his head. However, judging from the traces, the statue should have been reinstalled later, and there is a large cross on the back of the statue. It seems that there was indeed a statue here before, but it was not the terrible death god, but Christ Jesus who redeemed the world. Why do you do this? With your ability, you can easily solve the current troubles. This is the case here, and it was the same in the United States. You always prefer to be a director, but you don't want to be a protagonist. Why? Many people with great power don't want others to have any involvement in these things. But you always hope that other people, especially ordinary people, can get involved in these things. To be honest, I really don't understand. After confirming that no one was watching, and at the same time cast a spell of isolation, Professor Snape couldn't help asking. He really couldn't figure out the reason why the young man in front of him did these things. Voldemort was indeed very scary, but that was for other people. For the young man in front of him, Voldemort was as weak as a newborn child in terms of scheming and strength baby. But the young man in front of him obviously has a better way, but he wants to mess up the entire British magic world and turn everything into what it is now. It seemed that he insisted on changing things to this point, before he was willing to go to the stage to clean up the mess. Compared to Professor Snape's doubts, Augustus was busy with Macup at the moment, and he wanted to make himself as weak as possible, so that he could complete the last step, while slowly applying Macup to his face according to the Macup skills taught by Daphne. He looked at himself in the mirror, who was slowly becoming haggard, and said softly, "As for why I did this, I believe you have already come to a conclusion. What happened in Hogwarts Castle, before we came here? The selfishness shown by those people, and the mentality that they are unwilling to cooperate with us at this time, is because of the existence of these people. This matter has to come to this point. I don't fully like change. Whether it's in the Muggle world or the Wizarding world, all groups are like this. Because change means the redistribution of interests, it is easier for people at the bottom to accept that there are not many interests, but people in the middle and high levels are unwilling to go to the side of the change because they have too many vested interests. That's why they would rather join Voldemort than come to me, because they know that what Voldemort wants is power, will not shake, and is unwilling to shake their class interests in this society. Only we can make a complete change and unite all wizards by one person. Reshuffle all the interests, reselect the ruling class of the wizarding group, and then use the leadership of this ruling class to negotiate with the muggles whose number is tens of thousands of times that of ours. Only in this way can we achieve a good result in the negotiation instead of going into an irreversible war. So I took advantage of Voldemort, took advantage of the abnormality of the other party's brain and the brutality in his bones, and used them to oppress and ravage these unwilling people. Finally, liberate them in the posture of liberators, and at the same time, kill the pawn that was used, which can not only gain honor, but also shut up the guy who doesn't need to exist forever. That's right, Mr. Augustus Dumbledore. When Augustus's words were just at the last moment, Professor Snape directly made a conclusion. His tone was as calm as possible, but there was some anger under his calm tone. After hearing this, Augustus still calmly looked at himself in the Macup mirror, skillfully applying various cosmetics on his face. He just looked at Professor Snape in the upper right corner of the Macup mirror from the corner of his eye, after seeing the expression on the other's face, after the last Macup was done. Snapped. Augustus directly closed the Macup mirror, then turned around, and said half jokingly with a feeble tone and a weak Macup on his face, "Do you think we are cruel? Do you think I have been lying? This is not a bright and just cause at all, only countless calculations and ambitions. How can such a person lead wizards into the future? Can such a person really bring a bright future?" When he said this, Augustus had already started performing, and his tone of voice was extremely weak, as if he might die at any time. The performance was so exquisite and skillful that an ordinary person couldn't see the flaws at all, but in Professor Snape's ears, what he heard was a loud noise like thunder. He already felt the other party's anger, but he still insisted on gritting his teeth. A lot of people died, a lot of innocent people died in the process, and they either became food for Voldemort's twisted body now, either it became a gift for Voldemort to win over the Dementors. Before they died, they all suffered unbearable torture and pain. Also in Hogwarts, I believe that the current school is full of blood and corpses. Your brother will never let those people go. But think about it now, if he was the one who led this matter back then, would fewer people die? Facing Professor Snape's insistence, Augustus didn't say anything, but silently took out an exquisite gold cup and a gorgeous crown. At the same time, he opened a bottle of Bordeaux red wine, poured the red wine into the golden cup, and while drinking the red wine, he sang a tune that Professor Snape had never heard before. Chinese songs. You can still sing these songs. After listening for a while, Professor Snape said in surprise. It was Augustus who no longer looked at him with his eyes, but stroking the gorgeous crown, while shaking the red wine in the Hufflepuff gold cup, and then said in a calm tone, "You can leave the professor. I have never lied to you. I have no obligation to be responsible to you for what I did not promise me. But what I promised, I have always kept my word. This is the last internal bloodshed. The reason why I want to do this is to show it to everyone. The battle in Hogwarts Castle, and the battle that is about to happen here, is for the sake of preventing any more chaos in Paris. To prevent some stupid guys from choosing the wrong direction again, and to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, I will stay alone for a while, Professor. I need a break too, so leave me alone for a while." Chapter 193 Constantly Mocking. After hearing this, Professor Snape couldn't stand here any longer. Originally, his mission had been completed, and it was time for him to leave. But before leaving, Professor Snape reminded cautiously, "It's not too far from the city. I hope you can solve it as soon as possible, and don't cause unnecessary disputes because of any mistakes in this last step. Go ahead with what you have decided. Since I have expressed my allegiance to you, I will definitely accompany you to the end." Hearing that, Augustus was humming the unknown tune while shaking the red wine in the Hufflepuff gold cup, and after drinking the red wine in the gold cup, Augustus looked at Professor Snape, who was about to leave, and asked slowly, "You'd better not use the potion that Voldemort gave you. Mrs. Potter was bought by you with a piece of your memory. This is the price paid for the resurrection of the other party. Your memory is mortgaged not only in Mrs. Potter's soul, but also in the master of that world. I set a proposition for that memory. If the conditions of that proposition can be fulfilled, your memory will naturally recover. I know you have other feelings for Mrs. Potter now, but believe me, it's definitely not love. It's just an inexplicable affection. If you use potion to force the other party to fall in love with you, it may cause very serious consequences. I don't want you to go back to the old professor. Those days are too painful." Facing this question from Augustus, Professor Snape simply shook his head and finally turned around and walked out of the cemetery. "I've already thrown away that bottle of potion. It's just some love potion plus some other things. It's an extremely low-end potion ratio." It wasn't until Professor Snape's figure completely disappeared into the night that an answer came slowly from the night. With the departure of Professor Snape, Augustus was the only one left in the entire Riddle family cemetery. He sat on a large stone slab and continued to sing ordinary ditties while continuing to speak. "Pour yourself to drink." Because it was already approaching summer, there were no clouds in the sky due to the sunny days for several consecutive days. In the dark night sky, you could see the stars twinkling there all the time. You can see the stars of Leo very clearly, and one of them is the brightest. The name of that star is Regulus, which is also translated as Zuaniuan 14 in Chinese. It is the star Alpha Leo, known as the Heart of the Lion. He originally only ranked 4th in the brightness of the stars, but today he is extraordinarily bright. It seems that you really don't want to come back here. After all, you are the murderer who has not gone to that world. Don't worry, I will send all his souls there today. There is no such thing as an immortal Dark Lord, just a madman tortured by his own talents. Looking at the shining star, Augustus slightly raised Hufflepuff's gold cup, toasted to the star, and then whispered to himself. It wasn't until the whole bottle of Bordeaux red wine was finished that the entire cemetery finally experienced some mana fluctuations, and a familiar face appeared in the cemetery. However, compared to the Voldemort seen at other times, Voldemort at this time has actually dressed up and no longer wears the black robe that looks like a garbage bag. Instead, he put on a set of custom-made wizard robes, and judging from the sound of the other party stepping on the ground, the other party did not come barefoot again. Instead, he put on a pair of cowhide boots, but the only thing that could not be changed was the terrifying snake-like facial features and the stench of death that he carried with him. I thought you were going to hide there for a while. What are you afraid of, Mr. Voldemort? You shouldn't be called that in this place. It should be more appropriate to be called Mr. Tom Riddle. I heard that you made the first Horcrux, and the first person you killed was your handsome and extraordinary father. After hearing the footsteps, Augustus still didn't stand up from the stone slab. While shaking Hufflepuff's gold cup, he stroked Ravenclaw's diadem without raising his head, said, and hearing the other party tell the secret many years ago, Voldemort didn't show any surprise expression. His eyes have been on the golden cup and the crown since the moment he appeared. Give them to me, and I can forgive you for what you have done to me. As long as you are willing to submit to the Dark Lord, with your ability, we can share the secret of eternal life. We can do better. We will become the masters of all mankind. As long as I return those two things to me, all problems can be solved. Seeing the state of Augustus' face and the almost exhausted magic power in the opponent's body, Voldemort didn't choose to turn his head and leave directly. Instead, he stared at the two things in the opponent's hand, and continued to use his language skills, trying to pull this talented boy to his side. Facing the other party who still wanted to make a cake for himself, Augustus couldn't help but admire the other party's perseverance in his heart, and he slowly stood up from the stone slab. After cleaning up the dust sticking to his body, he stroked the golden cup and put the Ravenclaw crown on his head under the astonished gaze of the other party. Then, looking at the surprised expression on the other party's face, he mocked with disdain. I know that you have attached an extremely evil curse on it, and I told them to break it. This is also the reason why my strength is further depleted. I'm standing here, a wizard with exhausted strength and damaged vitality, standing here with your two Horcruxes above the graves of your ancestors. Take back what you claim to be your own, if you dare. I have to say that you are very different from the Dark Lord I have seen. You have neither superb political skills nor the courage to sacrifice everything for your ideals. What exactly do you want? Is that the vein can no longer be vainly immortal, or something else? The blood of Slytherin is so powerful, but you have used it to such an extent. In order to maintain the so-called noble blood, they gave birth to a group of foreign things through crazy inbreeding marriages. The only time they stained their own blood, but gave birth to the strongest genius in Slytherin for hundreds of years. What an irony. Your existence itself is the biggest rebuttal to wizard supremacy, and your existence itself has already told us the direction to go. There is no noble and pure blood at all. Blind xenophobia will only give birth to some monsters with deformed bodies. Only by embracing a new world will we have a better future. What do you say, Mr. Tom Riddle? Chapter 194, A Different Battle. This series of ridicule, especially the sentence about the grave of the ancestors and Mr. Riddle, made Voldemort's already distorted facial features even more distorted. What he hated most was being called by his last name, and what he hated most was when people mentioned his Muggle family. The young man in front of him is obviously so weak, and he obviously doesn't have any magic power in his body, but why does he still look like he has a chance to win? After feeling the majestic vitality of his body and the powerful soul ability, Voldemort directly took out his wand, pointed at the other party, and said slowly, while suppressing the anger in his heart as much as possible, "Give me those two things. Our purpose is the same. We should be partners along the way. For my sad family, and my sad father, that has become the dust of the past. Yes, I killed him. Including all other members of this family. I sent them to another world with my own hands. They don't deserve the same blood as me. Only I can inherit Slytherin's heritage and lineage in this world. I'm the inheritor of Slytherin. No one can compare with me." When saying this passage, Voldemort controlled his emotions very well at the beginning, but as he went on, his emotions became more and more out of control. The voice gradually became high-pitched, and finally turned into a roar, and looking at the magic wand pointed at him, Augustus felt extremely disappointed, and he threw two transparent glass bottles to the other party. Those glass bottles are all made of blue crystal, with intricate magic patterns engraved on them, and inside the glass bottles are two continuously distorted black smoke. After throwing the two glass bottles at Voldemort, Augustus carefully stored the crown and the gold cup, rolled up his sleeves, lowered his head and said slowly, I have already extracted your soul. Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, both ladies are very respectable. Your soul has stained the glory of the two colleges. I will return it to you, and we don't need to make any more polite remarks. The sky will be dawn soon. I still need to submit 2 videos, put them in Paris for others to watch, absorb those 2 souls, and see you in full form. Is there any possibility to defeat me now? But Voldemort, who caught the 2 crystal glass bottles, only felt that his sun rays were constantly agitating, and an unprecedented anger appeared in his heart. This is a feeling of being slapped in the face in public. In fact, he has been afraid of Augustus in his heart, and he has set up all kinds of traps. Even leading the opponent here is to set up a super large scale limited magic circle in advance to suppress the opponent's seemingly inexhaustible magic power. He sent his most loyal men to die with a group of people who could have helped him rule the British wizarding world because he had an unreal illusion that the other party would put 2 things in Hogwarts. In this way, I can avoid direct conflict with the other party, including being parasitic in the body of that guy Cornelius Fudge, just to avoid being directly killed by the other party before I regain my new life. The purpose of all these, in the final analysis, is the fear in his heart. He began to be afraid of this seemingly omnipotent young man. He is afraid of the incomprehensible horror magic of the other party, but this fear has been well hidden by him, and almost no one has noticed it. Except for this client. This young man completely shattered Voldemort's hard-earned self-esteem with this almost humiliating behavior. This easily obtained soul was the greatest humiliation to him. The Dark Lord, Augustus, who had already tidied up his sleeves and turned his whole body into a capable body, looked at Voldemort's constantly changing expression and did not directly take out his Elder Wand. Indeed, as Voldemort had detected, the magic limiting array he set up did have a certain effect, and the magic power in Augustus' body had indeed been exhausted. He was indeed unable to cast any decent magic anymore, so the purpose of doing this was to let the other party run away without fear. But judging from the other party's expression now, the other party should not run away anymore. After all, Slytherin's blood should be a little bloody. Augustus took out his long-lost crystal wand, which was made of metal and a very strange alchemy material. It has an unusual desire for blood with the magical power of the fire element, and Augustus also discovered this characteristic of the other party in an accidental experiment. Thus, it is completely clear what this weird wand is. He should not be called a magic wand or a magic wand. It is a weapon through and through, a sacrificial knife used in ancient Egyptian lore to complete the sacrifice of the sun god. Holding the red crystal magic wand in his right hand, he swiped hard on his left palm. Blood shining with golden light flowed out from the wound. Augustus grabbed the red crystal wand with his injured left hand and stroked it gently from bottom to top. The golden blood immediately wrapped the red crystal wand. After feeling the magic power of the blood, the red crystal wand immediately produced a huge change. The 2 cross-rotating metals seemed to come alive. A series of sharp metal barbs appeared on the top of the wand, and the gaps between the barbs greedily absorbed all the blood. After absorbing the blood rich in the magic power of the fire element, the red crystal in the center of the wand began to emit extremely dazzling light. And those metals that were full of energy started to move even more frantically, and they began to arrange and combine automatically. In the end, the whole wand turned into a very characteristic Canaanite sickle sword. Augustus turned this light and deadly weapon with a slight twist of his wrist, caressing the barbed blade that was as sharp as a razor. Feeling the heat from this weapon, as well as the opponent's constant desire for blood. But Voldemort, who was standing opposite Augustus, felt even more angry at this moment. He looked at the young man in front of him. Looking at the strange weapon in the opponent's hand, he said with extreme disdain, "Your strange gadgets are okay to deal with those ordinary people. Are you going to use this in the battle between us? It seems that I'm really underestimated. Some people have forgotten what kind of existence I'm in this place." And just when the other party wanted to continue talking nonsense, Augustus's body had already started to move, and he first rushed forward suddenly. He put his body half a step away from Voldemort, then rotated the sickle-shaped sword in his hand, using the recurved back of the blade on both sides. He hoped that with this assault, he could directly cut Voldemort's throat completely open with the unique hook of the sickle sword. Chapter 195. Although Augustus's attack was very ingenious, it was impossible to achieve the goal of killing Voldemort with such an obvious attack. Facing such a dexterous attack by the young man, Voldemort cast an illusion magic in an instant, and he transformed his whole body into a plume of black smoke. Augustus's sickle-shaped sword left only a shallow scratch on the plume of black smoke, and a gap shining with golden light appeared on the surface of the plume of black smoke. What is it in your hand? Why can I even be hurt in this state? After Augustus cut a scar with his sickle-shaped sword, the plume of black smoke immediately receded to the rear, and the distance between Augustus and Augustus was 200 meters, and then transformed into the image of Voldemort again. Voldemort also seemed to have suffered some injuries. On the left side of his neck, there was a wound glowing with golden light. It looked like the wound was cut by a sharp weapon. But the strange thing is that the wound didn't bleed, it just kept emitting golden light. I don't need to explain anything to you anymore. You just need to think about how to buy yourself some time to fuse the 2 remaining souls. I know that you also created a Horcrux, which is the beautiful snake cursed by the blood demon curse. When I finish dealing with you here, I will wipe out all traces of you in this world. After today's dawn, the entire British wizarding world, including the whole world, will undergo major changes, but in the future I designed, there is no place left for you. Seeing Voldemort pulling away, Augustus did not rush to catch up, but kept stroking the blade of the sickle sword, and said slowly. Hearing Augustus' words, Voldemort felt the anger in his chest was about to come out of his nostrils. Why did I prepare for so long? Why did this young man no longer have magic power, but he could still make himself so embarrassed? But now is not the time to be angry. As long as I fuse all the soul fragments, I can recover to the most powerful time. As long as he kills the young man in front of him, the entire magical world will return to his rule, and then he can slowly rise from the young man's corpse. Lenning, no, it should be watching some strange magic. The great Dark Lord must be able to research a more pure way of immortality. This remaining rationality made Voldemort not rush directly to fight Augustus, but took out that strange wand, lightly touched the ground, and then shouted loudly, Morse Mortar, the Gals are back. A green ray of light was emitted from the top of the wand, shooting straight to Voldemort's feet, and like spring rain, the green ray of light disappeared directly into the soil. Then, with Voldemort as the center, circles of strange green runes began to appear continuously, and the stench of death became stronger and stronger. Accompanied by the appearance of a huge magic circle, dry and rotten hands emerged from the soil, and they struggled to push away the soil that buried them. Then they broke their dead and corrupted bodies out of the mud, and the clothes they wore showed their identities before they were alive. But the rotten muscles on the chest, as well as the sternum and rotten organs, that can be seen from the gaps in the rotten muscles, have shown that they do not belong to this world. At the same time, due to the corruption of their skin, their skulls revealed complete skulls, and many people's eyeballs were completely corrupted, leaving only 2 large hollow holes and the flickering green light in the depths. My loyal servants, everyone who gave their lives for the Dark Lord, fulfill your oath of loyalty, and launch an attack on the person in front of you who is trying to challenge the authority of the Dark Lord. After hundreds of Gals burst out of the ground, Voldemort began his self-acting again, pointing at Augustus and yelling loudly, and the group of Gals who received the order, like the shark that smelled blood, started running towards Augustus with hands and feet in an extremely twisted posture. Facing this group of poor people who were still being crazily squeezed by Voldemort after they died, Augustus also felt a lot of emotion. Judging from the clothes of many people and their barely visible figures, Augustus still recognized many acquaintances, most of whom were former officials of the British Ministry of Magic. They used to scramble to chat with him at Lucius's banquet, hoping to use various methods, someone to use a power in their hands, someone to use the money in their hands, and some are more direct. To take advantage of your beautiful granddaughter. Their purpose is so simple, and their greed is so obvious to all. It is precisely because of this greed that they have paid the most severe consequences, and even death cannot be rested in peace. After these monsters made a brief advance, several Gals came to Augustus's side soon, and immediately launched an attack. Their attack method is also very simple, that is, they use their finger bones that have been exposed due to corruption, and want to use these sharp finger bones to scratch Augustus. other corpses with more serious corruption, or tortured corpses with broken leg bones or lower body joints, use more disgusting methods. They kept fiddling with their mandibles, trying to bite Augustus' ankle with their teeth. In this tomb of his ancestors, Voldemort actually buried the bodies of those who he used to restore his body, or who were tortured to death by him. Here, it is to hold Augustus back at this time. The reason why you tried to restore the appearance of these people when they were buried is because you want to arouse my compassion. You think I will have compassion for these people who choose to stand by you. I gave them a choice, but they failed me. They always thought that some people were just talking. They thought I was talking about major changes. It's just like all the careerists they encountered before. It's just a slogan used to seize power. But they are wrong, extremely wrong, and I will not have mercy on anyone who betrays me, even if their souls will never rest in peace. That's what they brought on themselves. Seeing the group of ghouls rushing towards him, Augustus swept his legs one by one, kicked some ghouls that had already rushed to his feet, and kicked them away. While slowly speaking to the open space after Voldemort disappeared, he gently rotated the sickle-shaped sword in his hand, then pointed the blade downward, and inserted the sickle-shaped sword fiercely, and moved his lips and said softly, "All will be destroyed." Chapter 196 The Dark Lord Who WOULDN and -039 Fight. As the incantation was uttered, a circle of flame ripples began to spread continuously around the place where the sickle-shaped sword was inserted into the ground as the singular point. And the color of this flame, which is different from the golden flame released by Augustus, presents an orange-red feeling as a whole, like the afterglow of the sun at sunset. At the very beginning, it was just a thin circle of flames. After touching those ghouls, the flames immediately engulfed the opponent's body completely, and using their bodies as nourishment, began to intensify their own burning. As more and more ghouls climbed up to Augustus, they were gradually swallowed by the flames. What was just a thin circle of flames had turned into raging waves of flames. The tumbling flames, with unstoppable power and super high temperature, began to spread rapidly to the surroundings, and burned those ignorant corpses into ashes. After all the ghouls were burned to ashes, the huge wave of flames spread to the extreme, and then quietly and slowly extinguished, as if the flame that burned everything was the same as the candles lit at a birthday party. Blown gently by the wind, it disappeared into the night without sound or trace. And those ghouls were also devoured by the flames, leaving only a thin layer of black ash on the ground of the cemetery. After clearing away the small miscellaneous soldiers who were in the way, Augustus picked up the sickle sword again, and then made a forward assault, raised the sickle sword above his head, and made a diagonal cut to the left. Gang clang. This peculiar weapon drew a perfect semicircle in the sky, and the empty air in front of it should have been cut instantly, but the weapon stopped in mid-air, as if it hit some solid metal. Where the blades intersect, there are obvious sparks shining. Seeing that the blow had no effect, Augustus immediately drew his weapon back. With the weapon withdrawn, a stone that had been split in half fell to the ground, and Augustus also clearly felt that someone left in front of him. It seems that, even though the other party has been humiliated like this, he is still unwilling to confront him head-on. It is not known whether the remaining rationality has recovered some IQ, or the fear of death surpasses everything else. In the British magic world, many ordinary people dare not even mention the name of Voldemort, and he started to avoid the battle. However, it is also very coincidental that the opponent may have set up an extremely powerful anti-apparition formation in this Riddle family cemetery in order to deal Augustus a fatal blow here. This made the opponent feel like he was in a cocoon, and he could only use the illusion curse to escape, and there was no way to withdraw from here immediately. At the same time, all the cruel things the other party did before also ushered in retribution at this time. Because the other party killed too many innocent people and adopted extreme measures, the other party's soul was trapped in his own incomplete soul. This makes Voldemort's magic power full of strong resentment and the stench of death. This stench was like a target, constantly guiding the direction of Augustus. As the opponent continued to change positions, Augustus also began to advance continuously. He used his extraordinary body to predict the opponent's position at an extremely fast speed, like a lone wolf chasing a goat on the grassland, and gave the opponent a fatal blow at the point where the opponent landed. Gang clang. Gang clang. Gang clang. I don't know how many times Augustus saw sparks appear, and countless times of perfect slashes were blocked by the opponent's stone board. With the continuous appearance of stones that were cut in half, Augustus's attacks became more and more frequent, and he even began to slash the opponent continuously. If a muggle happened to pass by, he would definitely feel that he had drunk too much tonight, and a teenager wielded a strange weapon, slashing wildly at the air in front of him. The opponent's speed was so fast that even the weapon he swung appeared as a phantom. At the same time, the air in front of him was like a stone, constantly resisting his slashing, and the sparks were like electric welding, which appeared in the dark night. Extra bright. Is it only to this extent? I feel extremely disappointed. I have pushed myself to this extent, fighting you with only physical strength. It's just to offset my unilateral crushing of you. But what about you? Don't you even have the courage to fight back? Don't have any illusions anymore. After today's sun rises, I will not let you leave here. Don't you often say that Professor Snape is a coward? What are you doing now? An ostrich who only knows how to avoid, a bug who is not even a coward. Augustus kept slashing and roaring. He seemed to have completely forgotten that he was a wizard and imagined himself as a gladiator in the ancient Roman Colosseum. The opponent in front of him hid himself behind the huge shield, facing his own insults and attacks. He didn't even have the courage not to fight back. This is actually the biggest insult to a fighter, because if you defeat a waste who doesn't even have the courage to fight back, what can you prove? A man who is only slightly better than trash. The opponent I chose for myself is only at this level, and what can I prove to you? Insulting the opponent's levelies. In the end, only insulting yourself. Only by defeating a strong enough opponent can you prove your strength. And under Augustus' close to body slashing, and the repeated verbal attacks, Augustus finally heard the long lost spell. Avada Kedavra Kedavra. A ray of residual green light shot out from the air in front of him, carrying an extremely strong breath of death, and flew towards Augustus's face at an extremely fast speed. Facing this mortal curse, Augustus did not use magic to block it, but flexibly moved his body in the air with the help of the opponent's stone slab. The curse flew out of the corner of Augustus's clothes, and directly hit the statue in the cemetery. The statue of the god of death did not represent the curse of the god of death. The entire statue was blown to pieces, and along with the stone powder smoke generated after the statue was blasted, Voldemort's figure finally reappeared. He looked extremely embarrassed now. His body was covered with gaps that exuded golden light, as if he had been scribbled on by some brat with colored crayons. The sword that can cut the soul directly. You are really too enviable. A young and vigorous body, a powerful ancient weapon whose origin is unknown. Why all the conveniences appear on you. It's really enviable, Mr. Dumbledore. Let's start now. Thank you for sending back my soul. I buried a very impressive skeleton here. You're right, I'm a dirty gal, so let's see if your blade, which represents the new era, can harvest the souls of the old era. Looking at Augustus holding the sharp blade, Voldemort didn't run away anymore, but knelt down on one knee while talking, and inserted his wand directly and deeply into his arm. Then he pressed his bloody arm directly on the ground, and finally shouted loudly, "Morse Mortar, the gals are back." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197. The Great Dragon reappears. This familiar spell reappeared, and the same green magic matrix as last time immediately appeared, but this time it was even weirder and bigger. If the magic matrix last time was just a gentle breeze and light rain, then the giant magic circle that appeared this time can be described as a violent storm, with a strange and deathly green light shining around the entire cemetery. And with Voldemort's movement, the ground of the entire cemetery began to tremble, as if some huge object was about to burst out of the ground. Augustus felt that he was not standing on the ground, but on a giant egg that was about to hatch. Augustus couldn't help but be surprised by this strange phenomenon. If there is no problem with his memory, all the wizards who disappeared, or were marked as executed by the British Ministry of Magic, They can basically be found during the battle just now. Even if there are some mistakes, the number of people is no more than a dozen or so at most. But now the violent vibration coming from the ground is stronger than the appearance of hundreds of gals. In order to fight this battle with you, I spent a lot of time and money. I still remember the first time we fought. Did I use the strategy of diverting the tiger away from the mountain? At that time, most of the army of magical animals I sent to attack the Ministry of Magic were killed by your alchemy guns. But I don't know if it's to save my self-esteem or for some other purpose. Those trash from the Ministry of Magic didn't tell you. Among the group of magical animals that attacked them, there was actually an adult Ukrainian iron-belly Charmander. After the first wave of the attack, that dragon broke free and escaped by itself. He just said that the first nourishment absorbed by this body when it recovered, I buried its body here just to deal with you. Mr. Dumbledore. You shouldn't be so arrogant, Mr. Dumbledore. You exhausted all your magic power and used this primitive fighting method to fight me. You want to use your strong and young body to fight against the Eternal Dark Lord. I will make your arrogance pay a terrible price. Let's take a look at the legendary leader who can lead wizards to the future. What kind of person is he? A mortal who can slay dragons with his own body. Just when Augustus was puzzled, Voldemort took the lead in answering Augustus, and with him, his body began to gradually melt. It turned into a horrible wriggling mass of meat, with many faces on it, and their faces showed extremely terrifying and strange expressions. Everyone opened their mouths wide, as if they were wailing or calling for help. Those faces were attached to the mass of flesh, changing constantly as the mass of flesh wriggled, like unjustly dead souls trapped in a twisted cage. And with the release of the magic, many small granulation sprouts grew on the wriggling mass of meat, and they were inserted into the soil underneath like tentacles. After those small sprouts were inserted into the soil, the vibration from the ground became more and more intense, and the luxurious manor of the Riddle family also began to fall apart due to the violent vibration. Facing this kind of scene, the most sensible way for Augustus now is to immediately interrupt the progress of the opponent's magic before the opponent's body has completed the transformation. But judging from the current situation, how to avoid being discovered by passing muggles is what Augustus should do. Hey oh you. Augustus had no choice but to summon his own phoenix, let the phoenix rest on his left hand, stroked the golden feathers on the opponent's back, and said a little annoyed, "It seems that I'm indeed a little too arrogant. I went to give that thing to Professor Snape. I believe in his professional quality. He should not have gone too far. Let him activate the emergency plan, release the magic of Nibelungen, and tell him that I will solve the problem here quickly, if possible. I hope that, when I go to Paris tomorrow morning, I can treat him to a glass of red wine as my apology to him." After instructing the task, he added 2 pet shop snack vouchers worth 500 galleons, placed them on the soles of Phoenix's feet, then patted the opponent's head, and released him into the sky. The phoenix turned into a ball of golden fire in the sky, and then disappeared without a trace. While holding the sickle-shaped sword, Augustus quietly watched the changing Voldemort, his eyes filled with a strange emotion. There is both a very tangled feeling, and an inexplicably excited feeling, as if the current opponent is not constantly getting stronger. It's a sense of excitement, that I can finally have a good fight. After less than a minute passed, wisps of silvery smoke began to emerge from all directions of the cemetery. The smoke is so strange, it always gives people a very dreamy feeling, and people can't tell whether it is a dream or reality when they are in it. It's fantastic efficiency. I like such a person. Such a person is a perfect tool and a perfect subordinate. After seeing the silvery smoke, Augustus might as well talk to himself. After seeing that the magic he wanted had been formed, Augustus did not hesitate for a moment. As he said just now, arrogance is really not a good habit. Augustus, who had no worries about his future, made a sudden leap forward and got close to the weird lump of meat in an instant. Looking at the unjust souls trapped in this lump of flesh, Augustus did not deny that his heart did throb a little. But this emotion didn't last long. After entering the attack range, Augustus immediately raised the sickle over his head and chopped it down from top to bottom in a very direct way. The sharp blade cut through the surface of the mass of meat, and the bright red mass was immediately divided into 2 halves by the razor-like edge. The piece of meat that was divided in half spread out to both sides, but there were no muscles or internal organs as imagined inside, and from the side of the cut, it turned out to be empty. The pieces of meat cut in half, like sacks cut by a sharp knife, fell directly on the ground on both sides. The empty interior not only made people feel extremely weird, but also made Augustus feel a little annoyed. It seemed that he was still one step too late. The other party had calculated the time well. It seemed that Voldemort was not bragging. He had indeed mastered some of his own magic. At least in terms of calculating the casting speed, the opponent's level can be said to be very high. Then when Augustus was still looking at the two empty skin pockets, the ground that was trembling violently just now could become abnormally calm at this moment. Immediately following the danger signal, Augustus did a backflip and took a big step backward from the ground he had just stood on. Just after Augustus got out of the way, two huge corrupt dragon claws broke out from the ground and attacked the place where Augustus was standing just now. After the two huge rotten dragon claws, a pair of huge rotten dragon wings, and the last thing that appeared was that terrifying giant dragon head, the huge bone-like dragon's teeth, and the huge hole in the pupil, in which floated the green flame that I saw before. Chapter 198. Raw. After completing the transformation, a huge skeleton dragon appeared in front of Augustus, with a body length of more than 20 meters and a head height of nearly 10 meters. A cranial iron belly compared. The shape of this giant skeleton dragon is much larger, and its appearance is even more terrifying. Corruption and decay are the eternal themes of this giant dragon. The rotting wings, together with the limbs and head exposed after the scales and skin decayed. Through the little skin left, one can see the exposed muscles and fascia. Such a monster full of breath of death was brought back to this world by Voldemort with evil black magic. Facing the giant dragon roaring only at himself, Augustus didn't feel any fear, but was very excited. He stared at the other party's shining green flames with hollow pupils, and said slowly in a disdainful tone, "It seems that you really didn't pay too much attention to me. If you had paid attention to my battle in the United States, you would never choose this calculation with me. You want to use the powerful body of magical animal to make up for the physical gap between us. You probably don't have the courage to imitate it with your own body, and you still call it the Eternal Dark Lord. You said whether I can slay a dragon with my own body. I can only tell you very sorry. When I was in the United States, I did it once on the roof of that building. I killed a giant python with a body similar to yours. I'm on this cemetery of your ancestors. I will also send you and this strange corpse to the hands of the god of death." Seeing Augustus, who was not frightened by his own body, and the mocking words of the other party, Voldemort was extremely angry. Roar. It raised its huge skeleton dragon head, let out a roar that shook the sky, and then immediately swung its sharp claws, and a powerful blow fell from the sky, smashing the stone slab that Augustus was standing on. After the lime dust in the sky gradually dissipated, the imaginary ball of minced meat did not appear, and the handsome boy still stood beside him. And it seems that the range of the attack has been calculated. The place where Augustus is located is just next to the farthest range that this attack can reach. But Voldemort obviously didn't see this coincidence. All he had in his mind was monstrous rage, and the only thing he wanted to do now was to tear the boy in front of him into pieces. He once longed for the other person's body so much, and wanted to use it as his best container, but after everything, Voldemort no longer had any interest in that body, and only by tearing it up completely and erasing this hateful Dumbledore from the world could he eliminate all hidden dangers that threatened his rule. So Voldemort immediately launched round after round of attacks. He continued to use his huge dragon claws and the bone exposed, but still extremely strong tail to frantically slap and sweep where Augustus was standing. The place. His attack speed is very fast, completely disproportionate to its incomparably huge body. Its attack can cover a huge range, and is full of various dexterity. Often after one blow fails, another attack is launched instantly, and the frequency between the attacks is very close, almost an overlapping method to destroy everything in front of them. Under the constant attacks, the entire cemetery was turned upside down. The tombstones that were originally neatly arranged were smashed to pieces due to the powerful attack of the skeleton dragon. The ground was torn apart, and the beautiful and tidy lawn was wiped clean because of the huge movement of the skeleton dragon. There were only a few green grasses swaying in the moonlight, living stubbornly and tenaciously. However, this continuous attack still couldn't hurt Augustus, and he didn't even touch a corner of the opponent's clothes. It wasn't until this time that Voldemort realized that the other party was simply playing tricks on him. The young man in front of him could always predict his own attack and started to dodge in advance the moment his attack was launched. Every time my attack is just right, I miss the opponent by a body position. It seems that it is only a little bit short, but in fact it is just the opponent's way of playing. Voldemort finally figured it out, and the anger in his mind became more raging at this moment, and the green flames in the huge pupil holes became more vigorous. At the same time, between the giant dragon's exposed chest, a mass of orange-red flames began to burn in its chest across the huge fence-like sternum. The burning intensity of the flames became stronger and stronger after the orange-red flames burst out directly through the gap between the breastbones. This corrupt skeleton dragon suddenly and slowly raised his upper body, finally opened his big mouth full of jagged teeth, and sprayed out the fiery dragon's breath from his throat. The terrifying dragon's breath was like a sharp sword, sweeping across everything in front of him. Everything in front of him, including the shattered statue of death, and the tombstones and stone slabs that had been shattered. They were all reduced to charcoal by the terrifying flames, and even the stones were burned to a state of lava by the flames, and the few green grasses that were still growing tenaciously were burned to ashes by the flames. After burning everything in front of him into hell, Voldemort still didn't dare to take it lightly. He turned the huge dragon's head, trying to find what he wanted to see. However, the imaginary corpse of the young man did not appear in the pile of coke. Boom. Instead, accompanied by a dull bang, the skeleton dragon that had just raised its upper body lay down on the ground, as if it had been hit hard by something. At some point, Augustus had teleported to the back of the giant skeleton dragon, and the blow just now was his slash from the sky. The force used in this blow was so powerful that this monster with a length of more than meters was beaten to the ground. Raw. After reacting to the damage from the falling blow, the skeleton dragon immediately began to struggle frantically. It roared and twisted its body frantically. At the same time, the flames in the chest cavity also burned more and more violently, and began to emerge from every gap in its skin. Seeing the raging fire coming out from under his feet, Augustus didn't dare to stand still anymore. He immediately started parkour on the opponent's back, while tossing and turning to avoid the flames constantly emerging from under his feet. At the same time, he used the sickle-shaped sword in his hand to continuously cut the few skin and flesh of the opponent. Finally, in the process of running continuously, Augustus came to the side of the opponent's wings. After avoiding the flame attacks that kept coming out, Augustus first flew into midair with his strength, and then spun the thing in his hand in the air, aiming the sharp blade at the connection between the wings and the body. In the end, he raised the sharp blade high above his head, and with a perfect half-moon slash, he cut off a bone wing of the skeleton dragon directly from the opponent's body. Chapter 199. Boom. Accompanied by a loud noise that shook the sky and the ground, this huge skeleton dragon completely lost its balance because its bone wings were cut off and its huge body overturned to one side. At the same time, it was very strange that the giant skeleton dragon could not stand up on its own despite only losing a bone wing. It seemed that as the bone wing was cut off, half of the skeleton dragon's body also lost control. While the giant skeleton dragon was struggling on the ground, the figure of Augustus slowly walked out from the smoke and dust in the sky. Holding a sharp blade in one hand, the young man stroked the dust on his body with the other, walking slowly but firmly in front of the huge dragon head. Augustus came to the huge skeleton dragon head, slowly raised the sickle-shaped sword in his hand, and pointed the tip of the sharp blade at the center between the eyebrows of the dragon head. Looking at the green flames flickering in the depths of the opponent's pupils, the fighting spirit in Augustus' eyes became more and more intense, and the golden pupil in his left eye also began to burn blazingly. The golden flame seemed to exist in the boy's pupils. The boy looked at this monster hundreds of times bigger than himself, but he had the feeling of a hunter appreciating the prey he had hunted. Your soul is not whole at all, and the brutality you have committed has brought you the retribution you least expect. You can't completely rely on black magic to control this body. You still need to rely on the corrupted muscles and fascia. I cut off half of your controlling muscles. Look at your current appearance. You want to be a giant dragon, but you fall on the ground and struggle continuously. You look more like a loach trapped on a mudflat. After seeing the anger coming from the depths of the other's pupils, Augustus actually laughed. He slowly pressed his face to it and said slowly in an extremely mocking tone, "Roar." In this situation, the dragon head in front of him let out a huge roar. Powerful sound waves and air spurted out from the other party's throat, and at the same time, the scorching dragon's breath gushed out. Facing the extremely hot flames, Augustus did not choose to run away. He spun the sharp blade in his hand and directly performed a standard horizontal cut. Under the gaze of the other party, he directly cut the huge pillar of fire into two halves. The flame that was supposed to burn everything was cut in half by Augustus and the sickle sword in his hand, like a candle being slashed by a hot knife. At the same time, the flames placed on both sides did not burn, but were absorbed by the strange ancient weapon. The orange flame was continuously absorbed by the red crystal in the middle of the hilt, as if the giant skeleton dragon lying on the ground did not intend to attack the young man in front of him, but conveyed his power to the other party. After completely absorbing the opponent's flame, Augustus laughed and said, "You must be very puzzled why your magic doesn't work for me, or you are extremely unconvinced psychologically. Then what ancient alchemy weapon did I find? It's actually not that complicated at all, because these powers don't belong to you at all. Everything about you, including your distorted body and the majestic magic power in your body, belongs to these people you have absorbed. The resentment of these innocent people killed by you for no reason and the pain of their souls before death are all engraved in the depths of your soul and attached to your magic power. During the battle just now, you should have felt that we have entered another world, and in this world, I negotiated a deal with the souls trapped by you. With the last mercy, I will release them and guide them to where they should go. The price they have to pay is to make your magic power completely useless. Aren't you surprised that the eternal and immortal Dark Lord was tricked by the trash he despises the most?" Boom. There was another loud bang that shook the sky and the ground. Augustus's face-to-face taunts have completely made Voldemort lose his mind. The opponent forcibly moved his body, and at the last moment, stood up forcibly, and at the same time, used his thick tail to punch Augustus. The blow that split the mountain and cracked rocks completely shattered the place where Augustus was standing, and even tore a huge hole in the ground. The skeletal dragon standing up forcibly is now in a more terrifying state, and its body has started to rot again. The muscles attached to the bones unexpectedly reacted again, and began to deteriorate at an extremely rapid speed. The foul-smelling pus flowed out from the gaps in the opponent's bones, and the surviving scales and skin also began to fall off the opponent's body in large areas. This body is rapidly disappearing at an unprecedented speed, and obviously Voldemort didn't intend to stop there. He began to concentrate all his magical energy into the belly of the dragon. With a purple-black flame, it began to burn continuously in the belly of the giant dragon, and this time the burning was so thorough. Even his own skin and flesh and blood were not spared. Everything, including the place where the opponent touched, the purple-black flame wanted to burn everything hard. The entire Riddle family cemetery seemed to have turned into a huge furnace. Everything was burning, no matter if it was trees or stones. The manor with a long history also began to burn continuously. Augustus, who stood in front of the skeleton dragon again, looked at the purple-black flames around him, and couldn't help but a different expression flashed in his eyes. You are indeed a genius, but your genius is used in the wrong place. This is nothing but an extremely selfish approach. Not only for other people's selfishness, but also for your own selfishness. Think about dying with me, and want to use this method to restore your pathetic dignity. Last time, you forgot one thing. The purpose of war is to win. If this is a kind of victory, it is a bit too extreme. I know your pride doesn't allow you to escape, but I also don't allow you to use those innocent souls as fuel. You are indeed of Slytherin blood, but you are not a qualified Slytherin, the only Slytherin I recognize. He has already used his life to send you to hell. Those innocent souls, the other part of the deal has already been done, and I now need to complete the part one should do. Goodbye, Mr. Tom Riddle. Chapter 200, The End of the Dark Lord. After saying his final farewell, Augustus re-held the sickle-shaped sword in his right hand, and at the same time, held his left hand directly on the blade. Following the sudden twitch of Augustus' left hand, the razor-sharp blade cut open the skin of the palm, and a huge amount of blood flowed out from the wound. The entire blade of the sickle sword was completely covered, and with the appearance of the blood, such an ancient weapon let out its scream. It seemed that after the long dry season ended, the sky above the Nile River finally heard the sound of rolling thunder, and it was time for the sacrifice. The ancient priests would dedicate all their noble lives to the great god. This ancient weapon changed its shape once again. It became more ferocious and gigantic, and the jagged blade was like an ancient giant beast opening its bloody mouth. After completing the final awakening of the appearance of the weapon, Augustus could no longer hold the sharp blade with one hand, so he had to hold the hilt tightly with both hands. Holding the giant sword that didn't match his body at all, he moved his lips as he looked at the burning skeleton dragon in front of him. He said goodbye, with his lips. Boom. There was another loud bang, but this time it was no longer the giant dragon, but the sonic boom produced by Augustus moving his body. The boy's figure instantly turned into a stream of light, and the huge sharp blade turned crimson during that high-speed movement. It was as if the sword had been reinserted into the iron-making furnace, and the huge temperature made it start to show a white-hot state. And that young man will use this giant sword to completely dissect the skeleton dragon in front of him. The first thing to attack was the dragon's legs. Augustus flashed in an instant and came directly to the skeleton dragon's crotch. It was another horizontal half-moon cut, directly cutting off the opponent's huge skeleton legs from the body like a hot knife cutting butter. Losing the support of its legs, the huge body of the skeleton dragon immediately collapsed again. After Augustus finished breaking his leg, another aimed at the opponent's remaining bone wing, and Augustus directly ignored the dangerous purple-black flames. Following the trajectory of the flames, several consecutive alley-oop jumps flew directly to the back of the skeleton dragon again. Aiming at the connection between the opponent's bone wings and the body, he held the sharp blade above his head with both hands, and then made a powerful vertical chop. The opponent's only remaining limbs were cut off from the body. At this time, the skeleton dragon completely lost everything, and its limbs were completely severed. Only the body was left lying on the ground, like a whale stranded on the beach, slowly waiting for the arrival of death. But the opponent obviously didn't give up. The purple-black flame burned more and more violently, and the surrounding air became hotter and hotter. It seems that Voldemort has made up his mind that he will take everything about himself, including those souls absorbed by him, from this world. Under the scorching of those purple-black flames, the clothes on Augustus' body were gradually burned off, and the exposed skin also showed very serious burns, and a large area of black also began to appear. It seems that these terrifying flames contain extremely powerful curses. After finishing his work of dismembering the skeleton dragon, Augustus calmly jumped off the opponent's back, but because of those burns, Augustus' movements became a little slow. The boy tried his best to drag the huge sharp blade, step by step, slowly walked beside the opponent's head. After taking a last look at the other party's empty pupils, he slowly climbed onto the huge dragon's head. Standing in the middle of the two pupil holes, Augustus once again used his greatest strength to raise the ancient murder weapon high, aiming the huge sword tip at the bones under his feet. Crack. The sound of bones breaking was particularly loud in the silent cemetery. The huge sword was deeply inserted into the middle of the dragon's head by Augustus. As the sharp blade was inserted into the bone of the dragon's head, the purple-black flame that was still raging just now began to slowly go out, as if it had lost its fuel. After completing the final mission, this peerless ancient sharp sword seemed to lose its vitality again. It began to slowly shrink, and finally turned into a magic wand again. The transformed wand slowly slid down from the huge dragon head, and fell onto the soil. And in the wound caused by the sharp blade just now, streaks of silver grey light began to fly out of the hole continuously. They were like butterflies that had just emerged from their cocoons. Because the newborns were full of curiosity about the world, they circled around Augustus for a while. They flew slowly towards the silver grey mist one by one. When the last silver grey light flew out from the huge dragon head, The huge wreckage, which was burned to the point of being only a skeleton, began to slowly decompose like a sand sculpture soaked in water, and finally turned into black ashes, floating into the night sky. Augustus, on the other hand, kept his sitting posture, sitting there calmly, with his head lowered, as if he was thinking about something. It seems that Voldemort is not as miserable as he imagined to be in such a mess, but it also comes from your heart. If you don't want to save those souls, you have a million ways to keep yourself from getting hurt, but you didn't do that. I think I saw the answer to the question I asked you earlier, and I'm very satisfied with the answer, Mr. Dumbledore. I can give you full marks in this exam. After all the souls had dissipated, the silver grey mist surrounding the cemetery also gradually dissipated, and Professor Snape walked out of the mist. After seeing the scars on Augustus' body, he felt the hopeful atmosphere around him again, and nodded in satisfaction. Voldemort's last Horcrux was found, and Hogwarts. What choice did Julius make? Hearing Professor Snape's words, Augustus did not raise his head, but stretched out a hand to take the potion handed over by him. Then he poured the potion into his mouth and asked slowly. Facing this problem, Professor Snape took out a huge iron cage from his magic backpack. There was a huge python in the iron cage, but the other party seemed to have been given a certain amount of sedatives, and did not see the stranger baring his teeth, but curled up together as if very tired. After seeing the python, Augustus just nodded, and Professor Snape explained slowly. I have dealt with Voldemort's soul attached to her, but the spell is not so easy to remove. I need you, a young man full of miracles, to perform it again. However, as you promised before dawn, Voldemort has completely disappeared from this world. You have fulfilled your promise. Your younger brother is not as cruel as he imagined. He gave those people a chance to live, but as for how to leave them a seat in the future, that will require you, a leader, to hopefully move towards a better future. Until this time, the black spots on Augustus' body also gradually dissipated due to the potion, and Augustus, who had regained some energy, slowly stood up. Looking at the sun, that has already appeared in the sky, he said slowly, I will, and it's time to fight for the right to live freely in the Sunday. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.